What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday evening. We're here tonight to talk about The Last of Us, episodes 1 through 3. We got me and the usual knucklehead over here, Charles, and then we got a very special guest down below over here. I don't know, a lot of you guys in the chat already recognized him, which was a nice little lead up to the live stream. That we got King Schratz down here, also known as Dave. Through a little Instagram message, we realized that we both been watching each other's channels for a while. So I figured, what the hell? Let's talk about Last of Us for a bit. So Dave, I'll start with you. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah. We got a lot of love in the chat. Like the first one's just like, why the hell is Cody and King Schratz in the same thumbnail? And then there was just a whole bunch of them. They're like, hell yes, this is what I need in my life. So It should be a fun time. Charles, how we doing?
I'm not a cartoon, so that's, if you're looking at the thumbnail, it's shocking.
That's the only picture I had of you. I was like, it kind of fits because you're the cartoon.
They know. They know. I was just joshing.
Exactly. So yeah, guys. So I haven't been doing the weekly live streams like I did in season 1, and I've had a lot of you guys reaching out saying, "Hey, we want to hear some more spoiler thoughts and get everybody together to talk about this." So I figured what we'd do, since we're at that point in season 2 where we've kind of gotten over the big event and we're still kind of marinating in that, and I assume it's just going to be off to the races now for the last 4 episodes. I figured we'd have a little moment of reflection, talk about the first 3 episodes, and then maybe we'll reconvene in 4 weeks and talk about the whole season. But we're going to talk about the first 3 episodes, just the TV series, for the first section of this video. So spoiler free as far as video game, future events. And then as the stream goes on, we'll eventually get into a section where we're talking full spoilers for everything that happens in the game that those of you guys that are watching the show don't know about yet. So just know eventually we will be getting into extra spoilers. And hello to everybody in the chat. Way too many names for me to shout out individually, but I'm glad you guys are all here. So Dave, since you're joining us for the first time, I'm curious, what is your experience with the actual games?
I actually preloaded it when it came out. What was that, 2013 or somewhere around that time? So I've been playing ever since. I've played through probably each game probably 5 or 6 times, up to like the grounded level. So it's one of my favorite games of all time, especially the first one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was the same way. I pre-ordered it. I was a huge Naughty Dog guy because of Uncharted. And so I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And I was blown away at like just how much more dark and dramatic this was compared to Uncharted. Tonally so different. And so I was absolutely hooked. It became one of my favorite games of all time instantly. And I was waiting on pins and needles for Last of Us Part 2. Tried my best to avoid all of the controversy and the backlash that hit right before it came out when the plot leaked. And I think that was during lockdown too. So It was like a nice little like, oh God, something I could dump some time into. And I felt like I was crazy because it seemed like the loudest majority of people hated the Last of Us Part 2 game so much. And I was like, I don't know what you guys saw. I understand there was challenges along the way, but I just thought that game was brilliant. And
I feel like the bar was so high because of the first one that anything less than perfect was just going to be a major issue.
Yeah. That's definitely part of it. Part of it, I think, was that the plot leaked, and so people got to react off of bullet points of the plot rather than actually experiencing them. We saw the same thing happen with a number of movies where something leaks and they just judge the whole thing off of 2 seconds of the story. And so yeah, I played the game numerous times. I absolutely love both of them, and I loved season 1 and was very, very excited, but a little cautiously nervous about what was going to happen with the second season because they made it clear they're going to make some changes. It was going to be split across 2 seasons. There was a lot of obviously things that happened in the game that infuriated a lot of people. And I'm like, how are TV audiences going to react to this? So I was very, very curious. And I know we've been following along over here on Wiliscredia. I know you just recently finished up Last of Us Part 2. So if you want to give us some of your thoughts for those that didn't watch the playthroughs.
I think cost, the situation I was in financially when the second game came out kind of dictated that I wasn't going to be a part of that situation anyway. And because of all the hype, I tend to avoid stuff like that. And there are other things in the gaming community where I'm just like, guys, come on. You can have girls in games that don't look like, Pamela Anderson. So stop. So that died down. And I remember speaking to you, Cody, you said, did you get halfway through it yet? And I was like, okay, something happens halfway through. And it's not exactly halfway through, but when that moment happens, it wasn't that big a deal for me because if you understand like what happens in that first game, their arc is kind of done. There's not much left to do with a certain character, so it wasn't that big a surprise. And I would maybe question the way things happened, what order they happened in the game, and I would think that they're kind of recognizing that and addressing that in the show. But there are two big moments in the second game where I'm like, I don't want to do what the thing is telling me to do. Like, this is not. And then there's the finale where it's just like, oh, I don't want to do this either. So the game can get you thinking things that you're, just conflicted about. Like that's powerful. Doesn't have to be. You don't have to agree to think something's good. So I don't know. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think when I was telling you, have you gotten halfway? I was waiting to see how you reacted to the perspective change. The thing that happens early on in the game pisses a lot of people off, but even more so when that happens, a lot of people just checked out. And I remember the only thing I was upset about is when I go to the workbench, I'm like, son of a bitch, I lost all my upgrades.
Yeah.
You have to start over from scratch.
Yeah.
This sucks. That was the thing that made me upset. All right, so yeah, we're all kind of on the same page then. We're big fans of both of the games. We're big fans of, even though it's challenging and against the grain, we're big fans of the storyline. Now we'll get into the actual show a bit. So Dave, I assume you really liked the first season.
I did.
Okay. What was did you have any worries or concerns walking into season 2?
It was more kind of what you alluded to, was how are they going to tell the story? Are they going to make it more linear, or like you said, that massive perspective change? I think in the sake of a game, it works a lot better. But when you're talking about a show, I don't necessarily, if they're going to go one arc and then change the perspective completely, I don't think it would have worked as well. That was my biggest thing. The other thing for me was obviously we all have watched the first 3 episodes, I would hope by now, but what happens to Joel? I was like, because I like Pedro Pascal a lot. So my thing was, are they really going to do this in the first 2 episodes? Because now I'm stuck for another 8 without him, but I know, kind of not necessarily.
Yeah, that was the biggest discussion with those of us that knew the game, is like, when are they going to do it?
Yep.
Is it going to be the first episode? Is it going to be the season finale? And I had a lot of different debates because I was at South by Southwest a couple months ago, where they were there and they gave a big presentation and showed the first trailer. And me and everybody, they were like, oh man, like I looked at that trailer, it's going to be the last episode. And I was like, I think it might be the first. Like, I think they might pull the Band-Aid off immediately. And I wasn't exactly right, but it was pretty damn close. But yeah, I admire the fact that they had the balls to just stick to that and not let the star overshadow the story or anything along those lines. But yeah, I've had a lot of discussions lately, and I'm curious on your perspective on this, Charles, where I have a lot of people in the comment section that swear up and down season 3 is going to be all Abby's story. And like you, I think it works in the game for those of us that enjoy it. I think that perspective change works for what they're going for. I think that would be a disastrous thing to do for TV audiences, because think about how many people that haven't played the game or already have certain feelings about Abby. We have 4 episodes left to get going on trying to get people into her storyline and get into that character a little bit more. And then you're just going to cut that off at some point. I would assume at least a year, maybe even another 2-year wait between seasons. And then season 3, we're just going to focus on the character that people have certain feelings about. I don't think that they're going to do that.
I think like we're of the consensus that there's a particular event that happens in the game that they're kind of lead, have season 2 end with. And season 3, I think it makes sense. Another little tidbit, Caitlin Dever is listed as a guest star. So if you know anything about casting and SAG and how they get their paychecks, that means she's not going to be in this series very much. So with that known, I think most of her story is going to be in the 3rd season, but who's to say that it's not going to be a different perspective per episode? Like, even within the episodes, like, all right, so here's Abby's story for half of the time, and then you go to Ellie's for half. I don't think that's the strangest thing. I agree. I don't think it's going to be the Abby show for season 3, but I would think they do some sort of I don't know, alternate perspectives within the series itself.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
hoping
what
that
I'm.
Game of Thrones that like where they kind of go
Right.
from one perspective to the next, and they just keep. But we don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. So as far as episode 1, where we get introduced back, they made a number of changes in episode 1 as far as how the story starts, and like when we have the video game, it opens up with Joel telling Tommy kind of the events of the end of the first game about what he did, and then we ride horseback to Jackson, and then we get the time jump where it's 5 years later. And in this, they kind of cut all of that out, and they replace a lot of that with the Catherine O'Hara character. I'm curious, Dave, what do you feel about the Catherine O'Hara character and how she's being utilized so far? Like, because there's certain feelings that I have where I like Catherine O'Hara, so I like her being there. I think her personality is fun for this character. I'm very curious what's going on with her husband, and I'm assuming we're going to find out at some point what the big thing that happened where Joel had to kill him. But I've had a lot of people in the comments, and I think they have a point, say that they're kind of utilizing that character to do more of a tell, don't show, where instead of getting us to see what's going on inside of Joel or inside of Abby, they're just having her outright tell the audience, oh, it's this.
I'm just after the first couple episodes, I like the scene that she has with Joel in the first episode. It kind of gives a little bit more backstory of where his head is at, which they didn't really get into in the game. But the more I see her in this, and I knowing that the Seattle, they're Ellie and Dina are already there. My whole thing is what are they going to do with her going forward? Like where's the story going with her? And you've kind of alluded to it. I think that's pretty much where it's going to go. But I'm just like, how much of her was necessary? If they're like, I feel like going forward, they might use her in one more episode and you won't see her after that. So
Possibly, yeah.
Don't know where it's going.
I wonder if that might be the thing that drives Tommy to enter the story a little more, which we'll get into a little more in the spoiler second half. But given we had a scene with her talking to Tommy, I think she might be the one that connects the dots. Since we didn't get the scene of Joel telling Tommy what happened, I think somehow Catherine O'Hara character, she might figure it out and then communicate that to Tommy, and that maybe that's going to be his driving force to head towards Seattle. But if you had any concerns going into season 2, Charles, what were they, and have they been put to bed yet, or do you still have any of them?
I don't think I had concerns going into season 2. I have things that I'm kind of second guessing, but it's only because of the game. To kind of circle back to what you were talking about, thematically, I think this series, the second season, has been like nailing the whole seeking retribution and what that does, and what the different outcomes are they really beneficial. I like the fact that Catherine O'Hara's character gives you another perspective as far as how someone can deal with vengeance, and hers is just not forgiveness, but she knows, but what else can I do? I still know what you did. I don't forgive you, but there's nothing. It's just showing that way of handling it. It's not that big a deal. It's not something that they showed in the game, but having that alternate perspective, like this is how some people could deal with things when they feel wronged. I just like that, and I think as far as the narrative, thematically, I think they're really hitting home with how people deal with vengeance, and we're getting a bunch of different perspectives on that. And when we get to episode 3, I'll talk about Bigot Sandwich, because that was another way of doing that.
Definitely. Another thing that we get very early on in episode 1 is we get the scene where Abby and her little posse are basically putting the grave together outside of the Salt Lake hospital. And it's very early on in the episode, and that was the first time where I was like, what are we doing? What's going on here? Because like they tell you who Abby is, they tell you why she's going to be vengeful, they tell you who she's going after. Like, you get information in this one scene less than 10 minutes into episode 1 that you don't get for like 7-8 hours into the game, depending on how much of a collector you are. And the jury's still out for me on whether or not that's a good choice or not. Like, I don't know. First of all, I don't know if that's like a story driven choice or if it's simply just to try to mitigate the toxicity towards the actress. because I'm sure all the three of us are aware of how bad it got for the actress that was the voice actress for Abby in the game. And I think they were trying to mitigate that by getting that information out quickly. Like, it's okay. This is why. It's all right. Don't hate her. And I don't know if that worked or not. But there's an element to knowing it ahead of time that I think is going to immediately make some people more understanding of her perspective and maybe soften a little bit of the edge for the first part of the story. At the same time, I kind of am worried of the fact that those that are watching just the show won't have that same reaction to getting that information revealed the way that we did in the game, where it's just like, oh shit, that's who she is. And like, you spend so much time in this headspace of like, fuck this chick. And then all of a sudden you get information. You're like, oh,
I can see why.
Fuck me, I guess. You know what I mean? And you don't really get that chance with the show. So I'm curious, Dave, I'll start with you. Do you feel like there's a chance that they can utilize that in a way where we still get the same impact in the game? Or do you think just by design, that's something that now is just, it's not going to be a part of the show, and you just missed out?
I think it's done. Like, we know why she did it, and it completely changes the narrative of what we're going to see going forward. Because like you said, in the game, you spend the first half saying like, fuck this lady. Like, I don't, like, I want to go to Seattle. I want understand why she does it. Where I think there's almost two different audiences here, because you have the audience that knows about the lore, knows about the game, has played the game, but then you have an entirely different audience that's watching this for the first time, watching it unfold, and they're seeing this from a completely different perspective than we are. So I think they have to tell the story differently now just because of that. Like, the cat's out of the bag, and the perspective change that everyone from the game knows is happening, it wouldn't make sense here at all. So if you know how it goes, if once you get to that second half, you're like you said, you're like, I can see why she did that. People now, it's almost just raises the tension of, what is she going to do? Whereas we watched it like, why is she doing it?
Yes.
You know, so it's like two different perspectives. So I think they have to tell the story differently because of that. You know, I hope they don't do that big shift in the middle.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the patience level with a video game player versus a TV viewer is very different, where TV viewers don't have any qualms with saying like, okay, I'm not tuning in next week. And video game players, if the gameplay is great, we'll grit and bear it. We're like, oh, I don't know if I like this, but I'm going to keep trucking. You know, I got platinum trophies to get. And so you keep going, and then you know, the game lets you live in that for 8-9 hours, where we're not even going to get 8-9 hours of Last of Us for the whole season. Charles, how did that change at the beginning of the show worry you at all, or did you think that it was a better version of it? Like, what are your thoughts?
No, again, I'll keep going back to thematically. I think they're really hitting home, and again, it serves another purpose for showing Catherine O'Hara's. You know, this is, you know, Joel is someone that he has wronged a bunch of people, so it doesn't make Abby's story that much more special. It's just, you know, she's going to deal with things the way Joel deals with things. Catherine O'Hara's character deals with it a different way. There was this backlash about like, oh, Joel is the protagonist, he's the hero, and that's mostly the gamer crowd. Where it's just like, yeah, maybe to you, but you know, there's a lot of people that he's ended. So of course, someone with the right head on their shoulders would want to do the same thing to him. So, you know, just hammering home that this is a world where other people feel about Joel the way, you know, you would about anyone who did the things that he did. Just showing different perspectives. Again, thematically, I think it's really hitting home, and it's, again, I'm here for it. They haven't done that much wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, the Joel character, whether you're playing the game or watching the show, is interesting because, of course, we get used to him as the protagonist, and you grow along with him, and you start to feel for him, especially when you get to the end and he has to do what he has to do to save Ellie. You're like, hell yeah, Team Joel. And there's so many things, whether you're playing the game or the show, that tell you like, yes, he's a good person in certain aspects, but he's also been a fucking monster in so many others. You know, there's that whole 20-year stretch between when his daughter dies and then we catch back up with him immediately after, where we get numerous people that say, whether it's Tommy or Tess, there's numerous people that allude to like, yeah, this dude did some fucked up stuff for a long time. And like, whenever he knows that the guys are faking it to get them to pull the car over, and he's like, I know about that because I've been on the other end of it.
Do it.
Yeah. And so you have all these little very cool, subtle things there that are never like fleshed out, but they're breadcrumbs that if you follow them, it's like, yeah, we're following this guy, but this guy really is, from any other perspective in this world, a bad guy.
It's also, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's also tragic because in that first episode, for most of the second episode, we're seeing that Joel, you could see it in his eyes, like he feels guilt. He definitely knows like he's not perfect. And to experience that just makes it that much more tragic, where it's like, oh, he knows he's not perfect and he knows his time's up eventually. And you get that in that second episode. So again, 5 stars.
Basically by the one line he says when, the big thing in episode 2 where he's, shut the fuck up and get it over with already. Because he knows he's got it coming. He just didn't know who was going to do it. So.
I loved that moment too, because like you get something similar in the game, but it's for a different reason. Because like in the game, when you get to that scene, like again, we don't know who Abby is. We don't know who these people are. To a certain extent, it's a surprise. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. A shotgun goes off and you're like, what the fuck? Okay. And so like he's staring into somebody who's looking at him like this, and he's just like, say whatever speech you got and just get it over with. And then it's basically the same exact thing in the show, but for a different reason. It's like she's the James Bond villain is what I compared it to. She's giving all the plot away to James Bond about what she's doing, and he's just like, God, just fucking do it. And I love that it focuses on her face and he's just blurred in the background. So all you do is see her reaction to him saying that, like, oh, okay.
It provided a comic relief that I think I needed there, because we know what's about to happen, and I'm kind of like, once he said that, I was like, he's right. Just do it. I just ripped the Band-Aid off. That's the same feeling I got.
I think part of it is like he's lived it. Like what we see from the first episode in that therapy session, the look on his face says, I'm not thinking about it. I know what's going on. So anything she's saying to him, he's probably thought about already. So it's just like, I know. Just let's go. And he gives you that last little Joel-ism right before he goes away, which is, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, even the way that it plays out where she gives him a chance to figure it out on his own, where she asks certain questions, gives him a chance to be honest. And I love the way that, Pedro acts it, where he's got his hands up and, let me ask you, when's the last time you saw the fireflies? And just the look on his face where he's like, son of a bitch.
Shit.
Salt Lake.
Figured it out pretty quick.
And so the way that it played out, I found that the way they did it in the show almost was harder. Like the game was so dark and nightmarish whenever it had that, even whenever like you experience a lot of it as your Abby, or as your Ellie going through the house and you're just hearing him. In the show, you see a lot more of it, and something about the way that it played out just felt like it was less shocking, but it was more impactful, if that makes any sense.
I felt more tense than the other ones, where the game felt a lot more like brutal, because it was just all golf club, where when you're watching the game version, it's all golf club, whereas she's using fists in the show version for whatever reason. And she didn't break the golf club either, which was just like, I didn't really get why they changed that, but I just felt a lot more tension. It just felt more quiet.
Yeah, it also
in the show
cuts.
version.
In the game, it cuts. You don't get to really see anything. In the show, it's just like, here, he's got a golf club in his neck. Look at it.
They were really trying to drive home that she wanted to torture him, to really make him feel as much pain as possible before it was all said and done. Where in the game, you just get a couple of strikes and then an ending.
Right.
Because it immediately shifts to Ellie. So you don't see it.
Now, speaking of Ellie, I'm curious. Now, this is it. I feel like this whole season, like you said, we're going to get 2 different perspectives that are kind of at odds at times, where you have the video game players that have so much information, so much of a predetermined opinion on certain things, and then people that are experiencing the show in real time. How did you feel about the way that Ellie was portrayed throughout pretty much all of episode 1 and most of episode 2, where she's very antagonistic towards everybody, especially Joel? Because we get the same exact Ellie in the game, but I don't remember that ever really being a big thing that people weren't cool with. Whereas I saw a lot of people for the first 2 episodes that were like, I hate Ellie this season.
There's a lot of teen angst in her in the show. She just felt like a bratty teenager type of thing, where she was like lashing out at people. Whereas in the game, she just had a little bit more like of that quiet anger. You could feel it, but you didn't see it. Where they have her in the show where she's not listening to anybody. She's a part of a group, and she's like, I'm going in there. I don't give a shit what they're going to say to me. And it just felt a lot more like Like, I wouldn't like her if I was a part of that community because of the way that she acted, because it would get me in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I don't know how much of it that's usually something that's a big pet peeve of mine. I say it in a lot of my reviews with like slasher films where I'm like, I hate the teen angst character. If it's
Yep.
that's their whole personality, it drives me nuts. And I think part of that's just the fact that I'm a dad with 2 teenagers, so I have no patience left for any movie ones. But you had, I feel like because I knew so much about why she's that way because of things that are revealed later on in the game, it's like I had more patience for it. So it was like surprising to me that everybody else latched onto that so much, and I didn't phase me a bit. I was like, oh, well, of course she's that way. Like what?
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So it was interesting to experience that first episode as somebody that played the game, and then have like my buddy Sean watch the first episode, and he's like, Ellie's insufferable, and I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And then you have to stop and think about why. And I agree with you too, like the teen angst side of things. Like I've seen a lot of people that say, you know, she's 19, but she still acts like she's 14. And I'm like, what 19-year-old do you know that doesn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it may not be pleasant, but I found it was kind of realistic. Charles, how did you feel about Ellie in the first couple episodes? Like, did you feel like she was dialed up too much with the teen angst, or do you feel like it was appropriate for where she was as a character?
No, I mean, it's 5 years later. She was a bit of a shitty mouth in the first series, but first season, excuse me. This British keeps coming back to me. But she's 19. She's arrogant. Like when they go out at the supermarket, she's like arrogant and sort of ignorant at the same time. It's just
that
you haven't
invincibility phase you have at that age.
You have to get knocked on your ass before you realize, oh, I'm not invincible. I just think like anyone who's been a teenager for that long will recognize these emotions. And if I have issue with anything that she's done, it's probably the third episode with the courthouse meetings thing where she basically becomes a sociopath. And what do you want me to say? I will say whatever you want to hear. But I am not proud of any of my teenage years, and I would assume this character is the same.
Yeah.
We got our buddy Rudy chiming in. She came off annoying and reckless, not listening to the patrol captain and putting others in danger. She got on my nerves in episode 1.
But that's normal.
I can see that. Yeah, that's what it seems like. I think people also have to take into consideration, like, she didn't grow up in a world like we did. She didn't go to high school. She never really had a time where she had to put down roots other than her childhood. She spent most of her teen years running across the country with Joel. So this is the first time she's gotten to settle down outside of Boston. So she's in a situation where she's finally around her peers and not an old guy for her. So she's going to have a little bit of that teenager phase in her where she might have acted like a 14-year-old because this was her high school for her.
Plus, like the first season, all up into it, she's led to believe that she's special, like she's being protected. So of course you would have something of a big head if they're telling you, you need to live. Like the reason she's still alive is because Joel thought she was special. So, your ego fills out the rest every now and again. And again,
just where her hubris came from in that, because she knew that she was immune. So, she just didn't necessarily have the same caution that everyone else did.
Exactly.
Yeah. And her experience too is very different because we have a very structured, at least most of us, like phase of life where, 19 is like your first year out on your own, where it's like you're an adult now and you have to make your own decisions. You get to go drive where you want. And she has the same expectations as a 19-year-old as she did kind of when she was a 14-year-old, where it's just like, we just have to survive, shoot that motherfucker if he comes towards us. You know what I mean? So it's also very different where she's 19 in age only, really, maturity wise, the shit she's had to go through. She might be, wasn't mature enough, wasn't old enough to balance it all. And it's got her all twisted up. So yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. Again, I wish Sean was here to kind of give us a little more context for that other side of it. But that was one that I saw a lot that was curious to me, where it's like people turned on Ellie immediately. And I was like, usually I'm the guy saying this. This is interesting. Quick little tangent. Tyler, fan of King Schratz, says, tried your rodeo Whopper the other day. Goated, my dude.
It's one of my favorite fast food burgers, man. The rodeo Whopper. Appreciate it.
There you go. So this is actually where I wanted to go next. So Gavin's doing the work for us. My favorite character so far this season is definitely Dina. Isabella and Bella have really good chemistry. I like Dina a lot in the game. 3 episodes in, I think she's my favorite character on the show right now. I like very much what she was, and I got everything that she was supposed to be in the game. And I think Isabella Merced has only it enhanced those aspects of the character where she's very alluring, she's very flirty. Like in the game, you get that, in that scene where they're having the dance and she's like, every guy in here is looking at you. And then she's like, I don't know, maybe they're looking at you because they're scared of you. Like, I'm glad they kept that moment and we could talk about the dance. But I feel like with Isabella, the way that she kind of has the personality that she's bringing to it, I think I just buy that side of the character so much more. There's something about her where I'm like, I could see her being in a community like this and like every dude wants to be with her and half the chicks want to be with her. And I think that she does have really good chemistry with Bella. And what's interesting about really across all 3 episodes with their relationship is that you were very much like, from the beginning of the game, you pretty much had an understanding like, okay, there's something of a relationship there. Like there's a flirtation. We got the scene in the weed farm that pretty much, solidified that and everything else. And in the show, they're doing it a lot slower. And I think a lot of it might be where it's not so much they're changing the Dina character at all, but they're making Ellie a lot more reserved, where either lack of self-confidence or maybe just making the girl that she was in love with that she had to kill back when she got bit and found out she was immune be something that's weighing on her a lot more in the second part of this story than it ever was in the second game. I don't think it was even mentioned in the second game. So Dave, how do you feel about what Isabella's bringing to Dina, and how do you feel about the way they're kind of exploring their relationship a little differently in the show?
I think you hit it right on the head. I think they go well. Their chemistry works because they're almost foils. Like,
Yeah.
you have Ellie, who is much more subdued, and then Dina's kind of almost trying to bring her out of her shell, and she doesn't want to. You see that hesitance. The biggest thing between this show and the game, like you said, is that they are making the dance scene like almost seem as if it was like a one-off mistake, versus where in the game it was like the beginning of something. So they've kind of almost pushed it to the side, with the scene in the tent where it's basically like, well, I didn't really mean to do that. It seems like they're trying to subdue it almost as if they're trying to make it slower and grow into something where it's a budding romance, where, like you said, they took out that whole weed farm scene where it cemented it. And now that's not there. So it's almost that thing where you have 2 different crowds. If you don't know the source material, you don't even have an idea of what they're supposed to be. You think that this is the normal way. So I like it, only because I think it isn't. It's going to be a little bit more of a reveal when it happens later on, if it does happen in the same way. We just don't know where we're going to go with it. I like that it's subdued because they're almost suppressing all of the emotion from the first 3 episodes, other than that vengeance arc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right, Charles.
Yeah. Do we know how long Dina's been in Jackson?
I never say.
No.
All right, so we're to assume that she's been there like the 5 years or so. So she's making normal college age girl mistakes. Like her idea of a mistake is going back to her ex-boyfriend. Like, she doesn't have the past that Abby does. So she's kind of like, a normal, I don't know, a typical rom-com type situation where like her idea of a mistake is, oh, I banged my ex-boyfriend again. Having like that route go that way is bringing some romance angle out of it. Like, you can be a badass, but also, this is what us normal people are. Like the conversation in the tent was very sorority house type shit. Like, oh, I'm a straight girl. I just want to know what it's like to do this. It's like, okay, that's what people talk like now, not in the apocalypse.
Yeah, very much. And I think, as Dave said, I think they're trying to kind of push things aside and let the vengeance and the forgiveness themes kind of be the forefront for a while. And we're going to slowly see through the events in Seattle, probably even more so, where that kind of trial by fire, both of them being like on enemy lines, replaces what happens so quickly in the game. And it's less of a front-loaded thing where they're going off because they're together, and more so they're going off and then they're going to become together because of the events. So episode 2, episode 1 was a lot of building things up, and then episode 2 we talked about the Joel scene quite a bit. But the one thing that, aside from that was major about episode 2 that was all new was the Horde and attacking Jackson, which I loved. I was one of the people that didn't really notice or have much of an issue that the infected wasn't as present in season 1. I guess because I just invest in the story and the characters a lot more than a lot of the zombie action. But to me, when I saw that, I was like, okay, they heard the complaints from season 1 and was just like, how about it now? You know what I mean? That's what I felt the whole time. As soon as you see the bloater, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing here. So this is something that I thought it was not only cool just to see it, just from an action standpoint, and especially when you get HBO level production where it's just like Game of Thrones, where it's, movie level or better. They have the budget to match the scope of what they're trying to do there. But you have you have a kind of a distraction in the episode where you're tense and you're getting the action and the excitement, all the while they're cutting back to this very grim, slow building situation with Joel, and you get 2 levels of devastation going on at once. So I'm sure I could answer for you, Dave, but how did you feel about the horde and everything going on in Jackson for episode 2?
As a Game of Thrones fan, and my favorite episodes of those are like the battles where they have that spectacle. It was the one thing that I didn't expect from this show, and they just got it out of the way in episode 2. It was really cool to see. You only got to see a bunch of infected in one scene in the show, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Where they came up out of the ground and you saw the bloater, but it was at night. Mm-hmm. But now we got this thing in full on. It's snowy and it's really light out. So seeing it was just like that. That was such an unexpected dope thing to see in the show. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too, because like even as you said, when we saw it last time, there was so much chaos and it was at night. And so you could tell, but it was very obscured stylistically. And then here it was daytime. So like I loved when Tommy's cornered and he just hears the stomps. And he's like, oh, he's like trying to psych himself up, like, come on, bitch. And you just slowly see the dude come around the corner, just like you would in the video game. Like there's dozens and dozens and dozens of people out there, but you shot me last, so I'm chasing you.
But they had me going in the game, in the show. I didn't know I was like, is Tommy gonna like? I didn't really know what was gonna happen there because he was getting close, and I'm going, oh my god, they're not gonna do this, are they?
Yeah, because gamers know Tommy should be somewhere else right now, and it's just like, oh, wait a minute, they're just throwing a complete curve this way, because you don't, at that point, gamers don't even know what the stakes are at that point, so we're just as clueless as normies, I guess.
Yeah,
I like the deviation from the source material in that aspect, because I don't know what's going to happen. It's like you said, like even with a show like Game of Thrones, I read all the books. Once we got away from the books, I don't know what the hell is going on either. And it almost added more suspense to me where is Tommy gone here? Like, are they really going to? But then I said, no, he's got a flamethrower. We're good.
Yeah. No, I was the same way when they kept switching back and forth where the bloater is like deciding between Maria and Tommy. I was like, is he going to kill one of them? And we're just going to play ping pong until the show tells us which one it is. And so I've definitely thought the same thing. I was like, he's either going to rip her off that fucking rooftop or, he's going to chase him down the alleyway. And when she was going down the stairs, I figured she was going to come up behind the bloater and do something. He was going to tear her face off the way that he does Joel in the game. I was waiting for that. And then she goes and she unlocks the dogs and you see all of them start to attack. I was like, hell yeah, good boys. So yeah, I loved all of that stuff. The only thing that I could have gotten a little bit more of, and I don't know if I'm just being greedy, is with the level of devastation that they're trying to convey with that scene. I would have liked to have seen a few more townspeople bite it on screen, where especially in the 3rd episode where they're talking about like, we've lost so many and, dozens and dozens. And I was like, it didn't feel like it. Felt like you guys are kind of kicking ass. And so that was the one thing where I understand, because that episode is so grim and brutal by the end of it, they didn't want to like add to it with the other side and just keep it on the action. But I kind of wanted to see a few more people get torn up and be like, oh, okay, yeah, they're really tearing through the town. I don't know if either of you guys.
One cool scene that they added in there was in the aftermath. Like they showed a person with a bite in his arm and they kind of just panned past it as if it was just normal, where they kind of, he's like, all right, man, it gives him and they, that was a cool scene that they added in that. But I do agree. There should have been, you didn't really feel the danger that much because it didn't seem like they took that many people out, even though you saw it later on. I agree with that 100%.
Charles, do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree.
Woo!
I feel like episode 3 with how much patience they have, they could have shown a lot more of the aftermath, like just how fucked up everything is. They kind of did, but if you're not going to show it in episode 2, show the aftermath in episode 3. And I feel like with all that money they spent making it incredible in episode 2, you could have saved some for just showing everything in disarray in episode 3. But it's a nitpick. It's not a major complaint for me.
100%.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I said it was one of the best episodes of TV I'd ever seen. And so any complaint that I have is absolutely a nitpick at that point. It's like, it's awesome, but and so yeah, by the end of that episode, like, of course, we have the Joel death, and we have something else that I'll say, which I'm curious too. Like, I've seen so much hate towards Bella Ramsey specifically for a number of reasons. Some people, it's just the physical attraction thing, which is weird. Others, it's like she doesn't look exactly like the game character, so everything's horrible. But I've seen a number of people that genuinely just think she's a terrible actress. And I've seen so many scenes, especially in episode 2 and 3, whether it's her reaction when Joel's about to get hit, her waking up in the hospital in episode 3. And like, I think she's doing a fantastic job. I thought just like she did in season 1. And so like, I think she absolutely sold it in the second episode, where you see the most devastating part to me that was a change is where, just like in the game, like, Joel, get up, Joel, get up. And in the show, he like picks his head up like a quarter of an inch. And I was like, oh, fuck, he's trying.
Yeah, he tried.
Yeah. And
they had to add that overhead shot where she kind of crawls towards him. You know, that's not in the game either, because she's knocked out in the game. So she goes towards him. And I'm like, oh, they're just going to really rub this in right now.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like Art the Clown in Terrifier 2, where he's like, here's the salt, here's the bleach, bitch.
Just keep going.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, the way that they ended that episode, to me, I was very curious to watch it with my wife, because my wife has not played the game. My wife loved season 1 alongside me. And my wife historically reacts very harshly to character deaths that she does not like. This is the woman that got to the end of Dexter season 4 and said, fuck this show, I'm not watching a single other episode. And I was like, wow, that was your response? Okay. And so like, when I got to this, I was watching it, but I was kind of like doing this the whole time. And so she's still watching it, but she was like, yep, I hate Abby. I hope she kills her. I want to see it. Does she do it? And I'm like,
stay tuned.
I don't know. And so yeah, I just I think the way that they executed, no pun intended, episode 2, it was surprising to me that it got me to feel even more emotional about it than I did in the game, where the game, it was just like, oh wow, okay, where are we going from here? And in the show, I was like, man, like, I felt that. And so with that in mind, episode 3 is a lot of like reflection. It's kind of the eulogy episode. It's the mourning episode. And I've checked out your video on it, Dave, and you're much more positive on the 3rd episode than I was. And so I'm going to let you lead with it, like, on some of your thoughts on them choosing to spend so much time with the aftermath and with fleshing out things between Joel's death and them heading for Seattle and all that kind of stuff, because the vast majority of episode 3 is all brand new.
I really enjoyed it, just because it's like you said, it's when in the game it happens, it's basically once Joel's gone, all right, we're leaving. You know, there's probably like a 2-minute, 3-minute cutscene, and then they're riding horses in Seattle already. And I feel like this show and game is such a character-driven show that I wanted to know more of how it happened, because in the game, they're just like, well, you know, we voted against it, we can't go. Tommy's like, they can't send anybody. Why did they do that? You know, and it gives you a lot more of that leading into it. And they also had more of a relationship between Dina and Joel, because in the game, she's just like, I'm going with you. And it's more for the device of, well, she cares about Ellie.
Yeah.
In this, I think there's just more to it with that, where she's like, no, we're doing this. You're not thinking this through. Let me help you think it through.
Yeah.
You know, so I enjoyed that aspect of, like, for me, it's like Dina's going out there. She's risking her life. Is it just because she cares about Ellie? Like, they're walking into a danger zone here. But this one makes a little bit more sense of why these people all care about it and why they voted in a certain way. Because for me, playing the game, you watch it through the perspective of Joel and Ellie. So I'm like, everybody there should be like, let's go and get these people. But in the show, it makes sense, where some of the people are like, you know, this is a different world, we should all forgive them. It gave me more of a perspective, like, okay, I can kind of see that. In my head, I'm like, fuck that, we're going. But at least they made sense in the show. So I like the fleshing out. I do enjoy that kind of stuff. I feel like some people don't. They want it to be more strict to the source material. I want more of the filling in the gaps between. That's why I watched the show personally. So for me, that was like, I'm watching. This is great.
Yeah. I'm halfway with you, though. I think that if I didn't know there was only 7 episodes, I think I'd be fully on board with you. I'm like, okay, cool. This is great. We can pause for a moment, exhale But when I look, I'm like, oh, you got 4 episodes left. How much shit are we going to do here? And there's supposed to be a bottle episode too that's like removed from the main storyline. So really 3 episodes. So I think that's where my nervousness comes from. Otherwise, I agree with a lot of what you were saying. Charles, I don't even know if we've talked too much. I know we did some voice messages back and forth, but what's kind of your thoughts on the most recent episode?
Again, if it's filler, it's probably the best type of filler. Like we got more of Catherine Harris' character, just getting blasted at a little league baseball game, like you do. Getting her and filling out Bigot Sandwich actually being something of an ally there at the court hearing. Like, yeah, all right, there's another perspective of how, like, him and Ellie don't exactly, get along very well, but they're on the same page as far as seeking revenge is concerned. So interesting perspective there. And a nice little touch that I thought was thrown in there was the voting, that it was secret. So we know 3, we don't know which 3. And the fact that like no one legitimately outright says, yes, I voted yes. Like it's alluring to me. Like that's the fact that you could have just outright told us who voted, but just an interesting little wrinkle there that, I'll say it again. I'm here for it.
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah, I was curious too about the voting side of things because I counted it was 3 and I was like, okay, you would think Tommy, Maria, and Jesse, but the only one I'm sure about is Jesse because there was a moment where he was like, when they said 8-3, and Tommy, I would assume. Tommy, I have a lot more thoughts on when we get into the next section as far as how much they're changing his story because that's one of the bigger concerns. But yeah, so we spend a lot of time here where they do a time jump, which we did not have in the game, where it's 3 months later, where like I told my wife, we were watching, said 3 months later, and I was like, oh, wow. And she goes, what? And I said, the game, it was like the next day.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, okay. Well, there's a lot today. I said, yeah, I know why. It was just, there's a lot of shit that got fucked up in this. So I get it. So yeah, the town getting, destroyed was definitely a part that necessitated that. Having not having the video game logic of Ellie getting near death and just being like, all right, let me wrap my arm in a bandage and I'm healed. So she has to chill for 3 months. That makes sense. And so you have it where I really liked the shot, not so much the scene, because I do think that there's an element to Catherine O'Hara where there's a little too much tell, don't show, but I do like it. But the scene after that, where she's kind of giving her outpatient eval, and Ellie walks down the hallway, and she's kind of got like that content look, and then it slowly just devolves into like this intent of like rage, and like again, like thinking like she's probably been sitting in this hospital bed for 3 months, waiting for the moment that I can take my first step towards Seattle. And when she starts to get back into the swing of things, and Dina comes over, we get that great scene from the game where she picks up the watch and gets his gun and goes to his jacket. And all these things that are I don't remember if they're optional or not, but it's one of those optional things where you can go and explore more of the house if you want to in the game. Thought that was great. But then Dina coming in with all of the information that she withheld for 3 months to make sure that she can heal. I liked her justification for that, where she's like, look, first of all, I know you would have been yanking tubes out of you and just crawling towards Seattle. So there's one thing. But 2, if we're going to hunt somebody on their own ground, shouldn't we give them time to get there? And I was like, oh, yeah, they did walk their ass to Jackson. There was no horses. So I guess that makes sense to let Abby and all them just walk their ass all the way back to Seattle. And then the scene where we get her and Tommy, where, again, very similar dialogue, but kind of in a different way in the game, where she's like, why the fuck aren't you halfway to Seattle right now? Like, Joel would be there. I loved his response, where he's like, no, he wouldn't. If I died, he would be hiding from all of this. He'd be crawling up into a ball like he always does. Don't act like I don't know my brother. And I was like, oh, shit. Hell yeah. Call her out. Because we like to think Ellie knows him better than everybody because we've seen the most time with them together. But you forget, again, about all that time where not only the 40 years before the cordyceps virus, but that 20 years between, where him and Tommy were doing everything they had to do to survive. Like, there is nobody on Earth that knows him better than Tommy. So I really liked that change to what's going on with Tommy, and him not being gung-ho to just, load up and go towards Seattle a day after everything happened. So, Charles, I don't know how you feel about that.
I had a thought and I lost it. I'm sorry.
Dave, how do you feel about that?
I like it. I like what personally, and I know we're going to kind of get into that later because it's hard to talk about it without like kind of spoiling things. But I do like Gabriel Luna's character, the way he's playing Tommy, especially. So I do like what they're doing, where he's kind of saying, you know, I understand my brother more than you do. And I also think that Joel is necessarily a vengeful person. He wasn't a vengeance person in any of these. He was more of the protector. So
yeah,
I also think he's 100% right. If Tommy were to go down, I think he'd probably just be like crying with Ellie somewhere or something like that. I don't really think he'd be running after people. So I like that part of it.
Sorry. So something that kind of caught me off guard was when Tommy was looking at the body of Joel, and like when he pulled the cover over the face, he had a visceral reaction where I was like, okay, so this is probably setting something off for him, and they kind of don't do what us gamers know happens. So I can't help but think, all right, so they showed us his reaction for a reason. What is it? Because anything he's said so far in episode 3 doesn't really it's not the same as whatever his face said when he reacted to Joel's body, which I can't help but, I'm just projecting what my thoughts were, but like, did you have to go this far? That's what that face said to me. And is he more thinking about his family, or is it like what is it? Because I think while we've had Ellie be a little sociopathic, saying things that she thinks people want to hear, I don't think he's being completely honest with people when he says that he knows his brother. Because that facial reaction to the body, it doesn't fit with what he said, as far as I'm concerned.
They've also alluded to some things where you don't get that backstory in the game, where he's having the conversation at the Little League game, and he says that now he almost feels like he's now Ellie's protector. He's assumed the mantle, and his biggest fear now is he doesn't want her to go down whatever road she's going down. So I think that's going to also play a role, like going forward, of where he might end up or what he's going to do.
And I like that if they're going to go that route, where his motivation is not so much vengeance as it is trying to curb her vengeance. And taking more of that fatherly role, because he is a father in the show where he's not in the game. So that those are elements, if it actually plays out the way that I'm hoping it does, that I think would be an interesting change in a good way. Now, we talked a little bit about the whole town hall sequence. And this is one where I've heard a lot of different opinions on Ellie's spot. You've said numerous times it's like sociopathic. I've seen some people say it was poorly written because it doesn't feel like Ellie. I kind of have the perspective of her, like, it's kind of along the lines of you, of like her trying to subdue her actual self for 5 minutes and trying to act like people like want her to act. And then when it doesn't work, she's just like, fuck it, I'm doing what I want to do. So
yeah, why would Catherine O'Hara's character say, yeah, she's a liar? We all know she's a liar. Like that's another way of letting you know that it's obvious to other people. It's not badly written. Why would they hammer that home then?
I think that they badly wrote it on purpose because it isn't her talking. This is complete bullshit, and almost everybody. So like you call him Bigot Sandwich gets up. And he's like, I got this shit. He's gonna start taking over, saying what she's really thinking. Like shit, it's crap.
Yeah, and you know what? And I liked him doing that too, because sometimes I like having the character, like, obviously he's got his prejudices, and that's the main thing with him that doesn't jive with everybody else. But I like the character that sometimes just says things whether it's politically correct or not. And he was at that guy in that moment where he's just like, all right, you're all a bunch of pussies, and then just lays out exactly why. Sometimes I like having those characters where everybody else is being too sensible. We need somebody to give some piss and vinegar in here. So yeah, I liked that. And yeah, the way that she was reading that, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting because it was so clearly an act. Jesse even told her, he's like, maybe you should write down what you want to say. And Ellie's not a planning person. She's a shoot from the hip person. And so her writing it all down feels like she's reading a script that was given to her.
She literally was reading it too.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we all love each other and I would protect each and every one of you. And like you said, pairing that with Catherine O'Hara, like, she's a liar and she's a bad liar. He's like, well, there's a difference between somebody who lies and somebody who's a liar. She's like, I agree. She's a liar.
Yep.
So
they hammer it home.
Yeah, exactly. So I enjoyed that, actually. You know, it was something that at the time I was a little mixed on, just because it was a very different scene. But I do like the way that they're kind of approaching her a little differently there.
I think they're
Now,
adding to the fact that she's haphazard in the show, you know, where she doesn't plan anything. They've alluded to it in that scene and in the Dina scene where she's like, "Have you thought about this at all?" And I think that's in the story to come is really they're going to hammer that even more. That she's probably going to get in situations, and I don't know where they're going with the story, so this isn't necessarily a spoiler. I think they're going to hammer it home that a lot of times her lack of planning is going to bite her in the ass going forward.
well,
Yeah,
there's
'cause
even things that we know are going to happen from the game if they follow the section of the game that are exactly a product of that, of her just reacting and being impulsive, and it's like, oh fuck, what did I just do?
Yep.
yeah, like she says, do you have supplies? Do you have medical supplies? What if you twist your ankle? You know, like that is just again for
She didn't even
it's
bring
badly
food.
written.
She just had guns. Like, nothing there. She just brought a bunch of guns. Like she wasn't going to eat in the way there. Nothing. So, agree.
Yeah, I really liked that exchange with her and Dina, where through the door she's knocks on it and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to bed," and she might as well have been like, "The fuck you are, I know what you're doing," and
she's
then
lying again.
comes in and gives her that whole perspective of just like, okay, yeah, Terminator, do you have anything but bullets? And so I enjoyed that quite a bit, as well as the reveal that Seth was the one that was going to help them get out. I thought for a second it was going to be Tommy. When she said, I have somebody who's helping us and it's not Jesse, I was like, okay, it's going to be Tommy. Tommy's going to be like, look, I can't leave because I'm the leader and it's going to look bad, but like, go fuck these people up for us. And when it was him, I was like, huh, interesting. And as Charles had said, where they're really trying to hammer home the whole theme of forgiveness, where, immediately, take my gun, mine's better. And, we got the horse from so-and-so and good luck. And then does the little thing. And there's like this moment of like, we don't have to like each other, but we got the same goal in mind. So
Much more grounded.
yeah, exactly. So I kind of like that. I never played the game thinking I want to know more about this sandwich guy, but the way that the show gave us a little extra more, I was like, okay, cool. That's a change that I like. I enjoy that. And we get some time in Seattle. Now I'm curious because, like, especially you, Dave, because you said you like kind of letting things exhale a little bit more and letting things breathe a bit. Did you feel like they got to Seattle too quick? Did you want more time of the journey?
No, I didn't really care because I did see a bunch of comments where they said, it was just like this montage. I think that the backstory that they gave in Jackson gave us enough. Like they let it breathe. Okay, now let's get this shit on because, like you said, we ain't got that much time. So let's get to Seattle and we gotta ramp it up back again. So they gave us enough. They gave us the scene in the tent, and they gave us a little bit of those. Well, the conversation that they had where they're naming, bands and things like that. I don't necessarily think they needed more out of that. Like, what were they going to do? Catch fish, in Wyoming? I don't know what they were going to do with that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I was actually surprised that I saw a number of comments say that they rushed through that. I'm like, but I mean, I was like, I mean, they show a little bit. Yeah, how much do you want of them going to Seattle when we have 7 episodes? Like, if they didn't get to Seattle by the end of this episode, I probably would have been really fucking worried. Like, what are we doing? Oh my God. Of course, Rudy. Of course, you're the one. Yes, they got there too goddamn fast.
I'll tell you what I thought was going to happen, and I'm kind of glad it didn't. I thought there was going to be sex in the tent, and I was like,
damn,
here we go. I was like, oh, they didn't do it. That's nice.
Yeah, that was
an interesting subversion.
That was that was an interesting change because that scene, dialogue wise, is kind of the scene from the Weed House in the show, but just a little bit different. And even just the inflection of how they do it's different. Like when Ellie in the game tells her you were a 6 out of 10, it's like flirty. It's like you want to go for a 7. You know what I mean? And when she says it in the tent, it's like Ellie being socially awkward. Like, you asked, bitch. I said 6. Like it's funny. It's a different change just to show the slightly different personalities between them, even though they're the same characters.
Plus the fact that Dina said, "I'm a straight girl." Like they outright say that, that.
Yeah, you're gay and I'm not. I think is what she says.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only that, but while you were sleeping, I hooked up with my ex again. So we kind of got that out of the way. So.
Yeah. And that was an interesting detail to throw in there that we'll have to elaborate on in a few minutes. But the other thing in this episode, and this was the thing that I honestly liked, I genuinely disliked this. This is the only thing in the episode that I thought, okay, this was a mistake. And it was the way that they introduced the Seraphites. So in the video game, at some point in Ellie's journey, you're in these dark woods and you hear these little whistles, and then you go to climb up over a ledge and you hear the sharp whistle, you get hit with an arrow, and all of a sudden you're just introduced to the Seraphites right there. Holy shit, these people are scary. What the hell is this? And the more you find out through listening to conversations, finding graffiti, like these people seem like a fucked up cult. And you, just like with the Abby thing, like you live in that for hours in the game before you start to get any different perspective on the Seraphites. And the same way with the WLF, like obviously it's attached to Abby, so there's a certain amount of like, these people probably aren't very good, but they seem more civilized whenever you first get introduced to them. They seem more militaristic. They seem like they got their shit together. There's a community. There's just probably a couple bad eggs in the bunch. And the way that they introduced them in the show was kind of the opposite of that, where you have the Seraphites, even though they look odd, they look like, they're, some kind of a cult. They're very civilized, and you got a father having a nice little sweet conversation with his daughter, and then you hear the whistles, and then they all panic and they're shaking because the wolves are coming. And then we see the aftermath later where one of them was shot in the back, the kid was killed. And so I'm very, very concerned, even more so than I was about giving information away about Abby. I'm very concerned about them front loading us with the Seraphites are good guys and the wolves are horrible. Because that's something where, like, there's not really a right or wrong answer on who's good or who's bad, like most factions in this game, but those are there's assumptions you make about those groups that you kind of go back and forth on throughout the journey of the game. And I feel like they took that journey entirely away from us in the show, and they're just like, nope, they're pretty peaceful and they're fucked up. And I don't know if you guys agree, but that was the one thing where I saw it and I was like, I really, really dislike the way that you did that. So Dave, what are your thoughts?
I think they're doing the same thing that they did with Abby and her group, is that they're showing you their perspective right from the beginning. For whatever reason, that seems to be what they're doing, where from our perspective, we're justified in how we act and everybody else is attacking us, and we're kind of either justified in going forward or defending ourselves. It's funny because one of the things about The Last of Us, the game specifically, is that you actually can get some more backstory before they show you them if you platinum the game, which I have.
Yeah,
so if you go through and look at all the notes and stuff and read them, there's a lot of things from their perspective where you can see why they don't like the wolves in the game, because they think they broke a truce and things like, so they have things like that in the game that they don't really get. They're almost showing you that instead of telling you it through the notes that you find. Yeah. So I don't really necessarily have a bad feeling towards it, because I just think they're telling us what we can either read or not read. In the game, you can blow past all that and not know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. Charles, how did you feel?
I feel like to start the way they did, having that small little section where the girl's learning, what the whistles are, and she gets handed a hammer to help defend themselves. To have that group just decimated off screen. Kind of neuters our understanding of just how powerful they are. But I do think the fact that they didn't show us what happened could be something of another curveball, because if it is the wolves, why not just show it? Why? I mean, you showed us someone take a golf club through the neck. Why are you not showing us exactly how these people took it? I could be wrong, but I feel like they're not showing us exactly who did that for a reason, because when you're angry about something, you fill your head with whatever you want to think. And the fact that Ellie and Dina, they say, oh my God, these wolves are maniacs because they kill kids. Like, we don't know that. It's funny how we come to our own conclusions based on what we already think and just something else that supports that. Us as viewers, we don't exactly know that. And I think the deceit is hammered home further with the last shot of this episode, where it's just like, looks like out of a war film, where it's just tanks and people marching. Like, yep, this is the wolves. They're the big enemy. For the sake of getting behind and thinking that the Seraphites are, strong, I think it's a little detrimental. But otherwise, I think they haven't really. They've left the path open in a couple of ways. But as far as strength is concerned, yeah, the little we know about them is they got murked. Like, that's all we have on them.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about that a little bit the other night, and I think that is an interesting outlook of maybe that's going to be some kind of a reveal later on. Maybe we're getting withheld information, kind of having a bit of an unreliable
Mm,
narrator of such an Ellie. I just I don't know who it would be if it's not the Wolves. Like, who could that? If Tommy was ahead of them, that would be a
yeah.
cool thing. Like, oh fuck! But with him kind of out of the picture right now, still back in Jackson, I'm just curious if it's not the Wolves. I wonder who it could be.
But wasn't it? Didn't we like? I think you brought it up, and I kind of support that idea that there's this like rogue
Yeah,
offshoot.
the people that Isaac have working directly under him are probably doing this, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the way it is in the game to a certain
Yep.
extent. Because Abby, like even Abby says in the show when she's getting ready to do the thing to Joel, where she's like, we live by a code. You don't attack somebody that can't defend yourself. And then you see that guy, and it's like, well, what the fuck is this then?
Yeah.
And so I think that might be a direction that they start to go, and we're going to get introduced to that character in the next episode, where he's seemingly the leader of this peaceful moral group, and yet he's got his political thing going off to the side here, where he's murdering people and causing chaos, and then finding a reason to propagate why they're the ones doing it.
Hmm.
So it could just be that. But yeah, I mean, again, anything that I'm concerned about or that I dislike, it's just my knowledge of the game working against me, which is an interesting thing to experience the show through. Because season 1, I was able to just watch it all at once, and this I have to wait a week, and I'm like, oh, what are they doing? What are they changing? And so
Something else that they added from the game was
Mhm.
when they're describing the WLF, I believe it's Dina that says it. She says in the game, it's basically Fedra versus the WLF, and they kind of gain control similar to the Kansas City group in the show. But
Uh-huh.
she says there's multiple groups in the game. So we don't know what they might be adding another group from that. She says it's like 3 groups were fighting, and one of them was the WLF. So they might be it might actually be like a different group. We don't know
That's
because
awesome.
they add different stuff that's not in the game at all.
Yeah, maybe it's going to be the Rattlers, who are the ones that you meet towards the end of the game, which a different part of the US, but they can always
Yeah.
switch that too. Yeah, that's a good guess too. So I guess we'll find out as far as that goes. But then they pretty much end, which we knew, but they end the episode for the TV viewers, showing like how big the WLF is. Where they're like, we're just going to march into Seattle and figure out
Mhm.
where these guys are and take care of them. And then you see a tank and other vehicles, and then 57 people marching in stride, and it's like,
No, the fuck not.
oh, oops. How far away is Jackson? So yeah, so those first 3 episodes there, like that's kind of how we feel about it. Now we're going to start moving into the video game stuff a little bit more. So this is your spoiler warning, guys. If you have not played the games, you don't want to know anything about what might happen in the future of the show, this is your warning to go ahead and head out, and we appreciate you watching. And I'm going to kick it off just because, I mean, this is probably going to be season 3, but we did have one super chat. Otis, the beefy one, interesting name, says, do we know if we get the Rat King scene?
I'm
I have
so
to
interested.
assume that's absolutely a must.
They have to do that.
Yes.
That would completely change my whole perspective on the show if they don't. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's going to be something towards the end of season 3. I don't think we're getting it this season at all.
No.
But yeah, whenever we start getting into the meat of everything, that's the thing that a lot of people are waiting for. Like, we've already got the Stalkers. I thought that was awesome. I'm curious if we're going to get the Shamblers at some point. But yeah, the Rat King, that's the one where it's like that's your big Game of Thrones sequence for season 3, I think.
Yeah. That's going to be a spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. Better question, is the Rat King practical or CGI? Probably be a mix, just the way that they did the other stuff. But I thought whatever CGI they used in episode 2 was pretty damn convincing. So they got the money to make it convincing, and the time, because they certainly take their sweet ass time at HBO. But yeah, so talking more on the video game now. So across all 3 episodes, any thoughts that you guys have that pertain to worries or speculation on future events? The one I want to jump into right away, which I think is most people's biggest concern so far, is the changes to Tommy. Where in the video game, Tommy, had similar reservations where he's like, we don't have the resources, we have the town here. And there's even more of a reason for him to keep those resources in the show because they just got devastated 3 months ago. But Tommy so far has such a different path than what he had in the game. And I'm curious, not just how, but if he's actually going to end up being in the place that he is in the second half of the story, where, in the video game, he basically gets guilted by Ellie, and he hauls ass before she even gets a chance to leave. And so she's on the path to Abby, but to a certain degree, they're kind of just following Tommy. and discovering the wake that he is leaving, which is badass when you see like a whole room of people that have been slaughtered. And it's just like, this was Tommy. These are his bullets. And the guy that's tied to the chair, he's been cut open. And they're like, oh yeah, him and Joel used to do this shit all the time. They told me about it. Like those are really badass, crazy moments that I think would work great in the show, especially with how Gabriel Luna's Tommy is so much more mature, I guess. He's so much more fatherly and leadership qualities, and not so much just like this the smoke and gun. And so I'm curious like how they're going to do that. I don't know if they're going to switch him and Jesse, where instead of Jesse meeting up with Abby in Seattle out of nowhere, it's going to be Tommy. I don't know if they're going to come together. I don't know if it's going to take, maybe we go through the whole sequence of events where we get to the theater and Jesse gets killed and Abby gives him that final warning, and then they haul ass back like they do in the game before Ellie eventually goes at him a second time. Maybe that's the point where he starts to get into it. I really don't know. But I'm curious on your guys' thoughts, Dave, if you think we're going to get a significantly different utilization of Tommy, or you think we're just we're going to get there. They're just taking a different route to get there.
I think they're going to take a different route, but we'll get to the same place. I think the reasoning behind it, I kind of alluded to it before, is that in the game, it's more of like, I'm vengeance. He's in there and he's just leaving bodies all over the place and they're following behind him. Where I think in the show, they're going to go more towards him trying to say like, come back, don't do this.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, where he's going to try to reel her in and it's not going to work. And then I don't know where they're going to go with that, but I just think his reasoning behind it is going to be a little bit different. I think in the show, he's going to be behind them, where in the game, he's in front of them. Mm-hmm. So I think he's going to follow them, where he might be the one following the bodies.
Oh,
yeah. So there's also that thing in the game where like he's the bad sniper when you're Abby. So like so far from what we've seen of season 2, he's not that guy. So if they're going to do similar things as the game, they haven't really filled that out just yet. So I can't help but think that the theater, there's going to be different participants in that standoff.
Yeah, they're going to move it around. I agree.
Right.
Do you guys think that the theater is going to be our season finale?
Yes. I immediately, that's where, because it's almost like, where the hell else are they going to leave this? And I think that if you don't know the source the material, that's going to piss a lot of people off in my, like, they're going to, because I think it's going to fade to black, where she has that one line where she's like, you wasted it, end scene. And I think it's going to piss a lot of people off who don't know that's coming.
See you in 2 years.
Yeah.
That's cliffhanger of all.
That's the thing that I'm kind of worried about. Like, I'm going to be fine with that. I'm going to be on pins and needles like, oh shit, that was ballsy. But I'm worried about the success of the show, where it's like, man, you're really like, at that point, season 2 is like, you're actively trying to piss people off, aren't you? And doing a good job of it.
It's like The Walking Dead when they did that with the Negan thing.
Oh, man, that worked because that infuriated me. But yeah, yeah, I have a hard time thinking of where organically they can split this story if it's not the theater. I'm just curious of how it's going to play out, because and even how they're going to follow that up in season 3 if that is the cliffhanger, because then you would assume you're going to, just like in the game, you're going to back up a couple of weeks and then you're going to build right back up to that moment from the other perspective. And I don't think TV viewers are going to have the patience for that at all. No. Yeah, and so I'm really, really curious. I'm not in a hurry to get there. I want to take our time, but yeah, I as far as the ending of this season,
what if they rush the 2 standoffs, the 2 mano a mano? Like the way they close season 2 is, one of the Ellie Abby fights, and then the way they close season 3 is the other end of the same thing in the water.
Yeah. That's the other thing I was thinking too, is they could go where, she says, don't ever let me see you again. And then stop from there. To me, the theater is kind of like going to be somewhere in there's going to be the fulcrum where they're going to move from one to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to get the aquarium and everything that happens there in this season 2?
I feel like that's going to be the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
That's where I just feel, again, it could be wrong, but I just feel like that's where it's going to end.
I feel the same way. I think the only thing that's given me pause is just how much I feel like we have to do in that time. And we only have a couple of episodes. So it's like, I don't know what they're going to cut. Like, obviously, a lot of that is gameplay and sneaking around and taking people out. But yeah, if you think we got 4 episodes left, the next episode is presumably going to be a lot of the stuff in Seattle with like the Take On Me guitar stuff. And we're going to get a lot of time with Isaac. and we know we're going to get the Nora section in the hospital at some point, and we're going to.
Not to be trailer brain, but we saw the spaceship sequence in one of the lead up trailers, so we're getting a flashback at least.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're right. So that's what I'm trying to think is like, especially with them not doing extended episodes, which I'm kind of surprised some of these aren't an hour and a half. I think not next week, but the episode after that, they've already said is like 40 minutes long, and I'm like, we're getting shorter episodes. What the hell? But yeah, I think you're right. I think that I'm concerned about how much they cut out of it, but it would make sense if the next couple of episodes are just balls to the wall and we get, the Nora hospital thing. We're going to get Dina somehow figuring out that Ellie's immune, whether it's the busted mask or whatever, because we're getting spores, and that's going to be introduced this season too. And then we'll have what happens with Owen and Mel. And then the finale will be their little showdown at the theater with Tommy and Jesse and everybody there. That makes sense to me. Yeah. I'm just worried about how quickly they're getting to all that. It feels fast.
I feel like there's so much to cover and we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
To get to that. Or unless they're going to skip over a lot of things that I feel like are pivotal in the game.
Yeah. There's lots of pregnancies and deaths to be catching up with.
Yeah,
because the group, there's not just there's 7 people in that group, and they're all still there. So we don't know where they're going to find them or where they're going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. How much focus do you guys think we're going to have on Abby and her group for the rest of the season? Because we're talking about how much stuff they have to get to, and that's just the Ellie side of things. Like, do you think we're not going to see a whole lot of Abby until that final episode, and we're going to get the vast majority of her on-screen story in season 3, or do you feel like we're going to start to have more of a switching of perspectives?
I feel like they have to switch because they already brought the Seraphites in. Like, are we just going to get 5 minutes of Seraphites and then just not see them until we get to the end of the season? So I feel like they're going to have to start switching back and forth, which is why they showed Isaac already, because Isaac is just a name in the show that we don't even know about until way later.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you asked me to bet after seeing one episode, I would have been like, yeah, the Seraphites aren't in this season, but they're in the first half, actually. So what do I know?
They got it out of the way quick.
Yeah. What do you think, Charles? Do you think we're going to get more Abby this season, or do you think she's done what she's going to do and now she's the background until season 3?
I don't think she's going to get like an entire episode's worth of story, but she might be lingering. Hey, we may not see her again until the finale. It feels like it makes sense, but at the same time, it doesn't. So, like, I don't know. The amount of changes they've made, even if it was just Tommy, it's like, all right, for 7 episodes, this is quite a shift. So, I don't know. I don't know, and at the same time, I'm not pissed. So, I'll say it again. I'm here for it.
So how much flashback are we going to get?
Right.
Because there's like 3 or 4 Joel flashbacks that are they going to fit all this in?
Yeah.
The more I didn't really think about it, but you're 100% right. We've only got 4 episodes here, and they're spending time in Jackson. So even though I did enjoy it, I do think the season it should have been longer.
And Eugene's coming. Like that's like
a whole episode.
Right.
More than likely.
3 episodes now.
And Eugene is nothing but a footnote in the game. You got a picture of him and okay, this is his weed.
Yeah.
And a firefly pendant.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my main concern so far for this season is even not just, selfishly for me, obviously I want to be fulfilled in 7 episodes, but it's more so for everybody else. It's, it's people like my buddy Sean who are like, you got to win me back hard because you're losing me. And it's like, are they going to be able to? Like, time's a ticking, and then you got a long ass wait and a lot less patience to get to season 3. So that's what I'm mostly worried about when I say that I'm concerned.
I'm sorry. What do you guys think about the gamers that are still pissed? Like, they've made these changes and people who love the game are still pissed regardless. Like, I feel like there was no winning them anyway.
People who love the game upset, or people who hate the game?
No, people who hate the game and still hate the changes that were done to the show. Like, I feel like there was no winning them back regardless.
Yeah, I don't think most of them I don't think were a goal to win them over. Like, I think that I hope that a lot of their changes was to do things a little differently than maybe they were intending to do in the game, but didn't have the time or the resources to, or, hindsight 2020. They're like, I think there's a better way for us to get from point A to point B that's not so inflammatory, that's not so challenging. And some people are going to love that. Some people are going to hate it. They've already openly said there's some things they're doing strictly just to promote the safety of the actress, which is crazy that's even, it's that level where we have to make changes to a story to try to mitigate her getting weirdos. But yeah, it is interesting because I've seen a lot. I've seen people who hated the game who still hate the show. I've seen people who loved the game who are hating the changes. I've seen people who love the game who are loving the changes. I've seen people who never played the game who are hating the show. I've seen people who never played the game who are loving it. So it's like it's such a challenging, subversive second story that it's kind of fascinating. You know, it's a shame that we can't all be on the same side and everybody's just, you know, high-fiving together for 7 weeks about how awesome it is. But it's fascinating to see how many different varied reactions this story gets.
That's one of the things that I think. How many adaptations have you had where the source material people love? And I feel like there's always going to be divisiveness no matter what. It was like this with Game of Thrones the same exact way. People who read the books, they were so mad that they left out so many different plot points in the book that aren't in the show at all. And then, you know, the season 8 debacle. But I feel like no matter what, you can't please everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even season 1, which I thought, like, I don't say this word often at all. I thought it was a masterpiece, season 1. I was like, this is perfect. I have no notes. And experiencing it then week to week with people, and people are like, this kind of sucks. I think that this is a letdown. You know, this should be more infected. This is too rushed. And I'm like, wow. Like it's fascinating to me. We can all see the same thing and come away with 2 different perspectives. But yeah, I mean, I have faith in them because they nailed season 1 so much, and there's a lot about what they've done so far. But I'm just worried about the 7 episodes, and even the fact that they've been Neil Druckmann has been a little unclear. He's like, yeah, like we're gonna take as long as we need to tell the story. It might be 2 seasons, maybe it'll be 3. And I'm like, how could you do 3 seasons with the second game? I guess you could get there, but I'm just worried about what amount of story they're going to get out, how much effort and how much time they're going to be able to even give us in this season to start to at least get people to welcome Abby's perspective, or welcome Abby not being just this absolutely irredeemable person. And do they have the time to do that plus a wait until the next season? That's my main concerns for it. But the Tommy thing specifically, I think we'll get there. Hopefully. I just think that the way that they're doing it's a little interesting. And the Seraphite stuff, as I talked about, I'm curious how that's going to play out, because I really liked how, just like when you have a predetermined opinion on Abby and you start and Joel, and you start to kind of, if their story is effective for you, you start to shift that a little bit through the hours of the game. You do the same thing with the WLF and the Seraphites to a degree. And I feel like some of that, I just hope we're not ripping all that experience out of the show just to appease trolls, if that makes sense.
I think the weirdest thing with the show, like, why are people complaining that Abby's not jacked? Like, it's such a stupid thing.
Everybody complained that she was jacked in the game.
That's right. You can't please everybody.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes sense for the show. And I keep hearing these things like, she was a tank in the game. Why are they not? Like, they did that on purpose for gameplay purposes more than anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas
they wanted to give you a Joel replacement. They wanted to give you a physical player. Yeah.
So I never understood that part. But it's like I said, you can't please everybody with this kind of stuff. I think no matter where this goes, I'll still to some degree enjoy just watching it unfold on screen, no matter what.
Same.
Even if I am disappointed in how they told the story, I'm still enjoying just the journey of how are they going to tell this story as compared to the game.
I guess my little asterisk is they just better not make Abby as strong as she is in the game in the show, because they have given us no information to state that, you know, she's this tank, like you said. Like, you know, she was one track mind. Joel, that's it. As far as the information they've given us, that's all she's worried about. So, you know, I don't want to. I hope they don't, but I don't think they will.
No.
Are there any other things that I didn't mention that you guys are maybe a little concerned about or curious about on how it's going to play out later on in the story with the changes that they've made?
I'm interested to see the Lev arc that they have in the game, because they haven't talked about it at all. Because in the show, they have kind of gotten all the characters and the exposition out of the way so they can tell the story. But the Lev arc in the game is a huge part of what Abby becomes, and they haven't really I thought he was going to be in that scene. If I was going to be, when they introduced Seraphites, I thought they're going to have some form of Lev. I'm interested to see if they're going to have those two characters that are the main thing or perspective we get from the Seraphites, where they're going to go with that, and if they're going to tie it in, because again, they're not introduced at all, and we don't have much time.
Yeah, I think that's the parallel Joel Ellie storyline is Abby, Lev, and probably for season 3.
Also, if they're going to film that part where they use the sky bridges.
Oh, please do.
I got vertigo playing that in the game. I fell about 13 times the first time through.
Oh yeah,
and I played on permadeath, so it wasn't fun.
Oh
God, not fun at all. I broke
13 hours down the fucking drain.
Start all over again.
Oh my God. Yeah,
so I'm interested in that.
I can imagine just the tension and like, oh God, after you died once or twice, and you're like, for the third time, I've got to this part.
In permadeath, man, it's.
I'm not built for it. I can tell you now. I'll put holes in the wall.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, I can't do it. Like I'm really good at like maintaining my frustration, like because I play on hard most games, so I like a challenge. But that whole like the last 13 hours of your life, go to hell. Try again. That's like Sega Genesis era shit that I was used to as a kid, where I'm like, thank God for memory cards.
Yeah.
I agree.
What if it's not your fault? Like the controller dies. You're like, oh no.
If you go back to like NES, man, like those games used to just break while you were playing them. Sometimes the game would just freeze, and then you'd be like, fuck, I gotta start all over again with this shit.
That's something that for those of us that have kids is like it's just like they have cell phones now, and we used to like the cordless phone was like a big innovation for us, but like the video game thing is even more, where you see your kids like throwing their controller down. It's like, shut up, bitch, you could start 5 minutes from where you just were.
In my day.
Yeah, exactly. Back in my day, you lose at the last level, you go all the way back to the beginning.
You kids with your auto saves.
Yeah, exactly. That too. Yeah, you used to have to remember to save, and sometimes games will fuck with you. They'll bring that back where you have to physically save. Like I think Dead Rising was the last one that did that, where like you'll go for 4 hours and die, and you're like, wait a minute, you didn't save? Yeah. Oh man, kids today. Charles, anything about the future that you're worried about, curious about, concerned about, given the changes that we've had so far?
Tommy, it's just Tommy, because it feels like they're going to make him some sort of I don't know, pacifist. I don't think that's the case, but it feels like they're kind of setting that up. But other than that, I the changes they've made, I'm interested, and I'm not saying I'm not interested, but what they've done with Tommy so far, it's like, that's interesting. Where are you going with this? And I can't help but think what they've already done by switching certain participants in what we know from the game. I don't think that's the last of it. I think we're going to see some swapped roles moving forward, and that's kind of exciting for me.
Yeah,
it's exciting and it's nerve-wracking, like because I was lucky enough to get screeners for season 1, and I got to watch it all, and then everybody had to do it week to week, and I was like, oh man, thank God. And then this year I was denied, and so now I'm sitting here on pins and needles for 7 days at a time going like like you just have to sit there and speculate, like what are they doing, what's gonna happen, and like I love it and I hate it at the same time.
I hate it. Yeah. I love to watch shows in succession. When they do this releasing from week to week, it drives me nuts, because it's like you said, like these are all pieces to a whole.
Yes.
Whereas a movie, you watch it, the plot is resolved hopefully by the end of the movie. Whereas this, we're just kind of like, all right, well, where are they going with this? It drives me nuts.
Yeah, and it is so difficult to be on my end of things, where you have to review, or you're expected to review each episode, because I'll get that feedback where it's just like, why are you bitching? You don't have the whole picture yet. I'm like, I still have to talk about this week. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, so yeah, that's always the difficult thing. I ran into so much of that with Chucky, where I would bitch about something and they're like, next week it could go away. I'm like, or it could get fucking worse. And so it's really difficult. All right, guys. Well, we pretty much got through all of our thoughts on these 3 episodes, unless you guys have some more. So I'm going to open it up to the floor for 10 minutes or so. If you guys want to shoot us some questions, some super chats, anything like that, try to keep it relevant to the topic. But if you have a really fun comment that's going to send us in a different direction, I'm not going to sneeze at it. Is this the MFer who eats food? We all eat food. Which one are you talking about?
I eat food.
Yeah. Why, yes, I am.
I always think comments like that are hilarious. Like, I spend my entire day just eating cheeseburgers. Like, I don't have any hobbies. I have nothing. I never did anything else. I was born, I had some chicken, and then that's it. Here I am.
There you
But
go.
I always find that funny as hell.
I mean, I was a little guilty of it whenever I figured out we had so many common interests. I was like, oh shit, he watches TV. He watches horror movies.
I get it, because when you make content, it's just like one piece of a puzzle, so they don't realize like there's a whole other,
I dealt with that when I started to branch out, when I went full time and talk much more about other things besides horror. They're like, why are you talking about other movies? I'm like, I don't just watch Nightmare on Elm Street every day. Like, there's other things.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Loser, fake fan.
Is there something comparable to clickbait for food? Like, is there something that, like, I can't help but think there can't be clickbait for food, can there?
Clickbait? Not necessarily. I mean, no.
I think the closest thing that I can imagine being clickbait is if you eat something and you put like a graphic. It's like, this tastes like shit or something, just to get people to like some new Taco Bell thing or whatever.
Yeah, people will do that, or you'll get people that are more along the lines of they'll kind of bait you by saying like, I went to Taco Bell and they will tell you what's exactly going to happen, something like that.
And I left and went to Dunkin' Donuts. So here we're talking about their new sandwich.
That does happen.
It's fascinating.
It's all YouTube, man. You clickbait anything.
Oh yeah. If you really want to, you can. Do you guys expect The Last of Us Part 3, or do you think Neil is done with the story? That's a great question. And I got to be honest with you. I think he's full of shit. I think that he's trying to get people to back off of him because he's already got so much going on. He's got the show. He's got next season. Plus, Naughty Dog is doing that intergalactic game. I don't think there's any chance that he does not plan on closing out this story with a third game. I just think he wants everybody to have clear expectations of like, it ain't coming soon. And so that's his way to like try to get people to like expect, if you're going to get an ending, it's going to be in the show and you're probably not going to get a third game. But I don't feel like that makes sense to me. I can't think of any motivation why Naughty Dog, even if it's not Neil Druckmann who is making it, I can't see any reason why Naughty Dog, as many times as they've just simply remastered these fucking things and put them out there for you to buy again, why they would not immediately pursue a third game. I think the story's already being written, if not already written, and then we'll get into the game development at some point. But Dave, do you think that he's done, as he said? Do you think there might not be a third game?
I feel like the last part of that game, there's two natural cliffhangers where I actually want to know what the hell happened after that, between Ellie, going on her journey where you think it's over, but now she puts guitar down and she kind of goes on her way. And then where'd Abby go? Like, where did everybody go when it comes to, I feel like there has to be. The other thing I do want to add to that is I always thought about this. I would want to see a prequel. I would want to see what the hell Tommy and Joel were doing in that 20 years in between the plot of it and after he lost his daughter. I would love to see a prequel where you can kind of see, prime Joel and prime Tommy, like not necessarily being good, but what were they doing?
I would buy that every day and twice on Sunday. It might take a while to get there. Like, we've had the Gears of War games for well over a decade now, and we're just now getting a prequel. So it might take some time. Naughty Dog, ever since The Last of Us, they like to take their time. But yeah, I would love that. Absolutely. Charles.
Dave, that's a really good answer. I'm going to just adopt that one. I agree thoroughly. I'll use his answer as mine. Yeah. He's got a lot of stuff going on. So you're asking about the game and not the show, right? A third game and not a fourth season.
He was asked about
show?
a third game. He was doing like there was a documentary of sorts that came out not too long ago, and it ended on this clip that was all over TikTok and everything, where he's like, I don't ever want to make a game until I have an idea. And I just think I think I finally have the idea for the third game. And then that was all you got. And then you fast forward a year or so, and he's doing red carpet for the show, and people ask, like, I'm not asking about this thing that you're here to promote today, but the future, like the next game. And his answer was a lot more grim, where he's like, I don't know. It might not ever happen. Don't expect it, because I have this, and this. Like, we're fully focused on the show. We're fully focused on this intergalactic game. And the way that I read it was not chances are slim this is going to happen. I read it as
not now.
Yeah, I read it as, there's 7 other things that I'm going to be promoting before that. So this is all you're getting from me.
I feel like there's no way they're not. Their money talks. Like, there's no way they're not going to make a game. I just, even if, like you said, even if it's not him, someone's going to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're all on the same page then. Neil Druckmann's full of it. Let's see.
He's just busy. That's all. Just busy. Maybe later.
There you go. Let's see here. For King, how quick do you think New Jersey would go under in this type of apocalypse?
We're like sardines here, man. If it ever happened, the first thing I'm doing is getting the fuck out of New Jersey. Like we're people don't realize this, but New Jersey's like the 45th largest state, but we're like 10th in population. Like we're like sardines here.
Oh,
so
wow.
The first thing that I would be doing is I'm going to Pennsylvania and getting into the middle of nowhere.
There you go. Will someone get their fingers bitten off in season 3? I don't know. I think if they're going to make any major changes, I'm curious if they're going to change anything about that final bit there. If they're going to leave it less ambiguous, if they're actually going to have one of the characters die, if it's going to have the fingers and we're going to leave with the guitar thing, because the guitar thing really hasn't been a prominent thing yet. You know, we've had visuals of it, but it hasn't been as integral as it was in the game, where like we literally open the game with Joel cleaning the guitar, and then we get the scene of him teaching her with the Pearl Jam song, and then she plays it later on. Yeah,
you have to play with the controller, so it's way more important.
Yes, so I don't know if that specific thing will happen. I have my doubts. Let's see here. Here's a good one. Cody Leach, an esteemed guest. What other games would you like to see get an adaptation, whether it be TV or a movie? Pretty sure you know mine. Yeah, looks like Dead Space. I'm guessing from your picture there. Dead Space is one that I could see being a good movie if you got the right director. For me, I've always wanted to see Metal Gear Solid, but they always keep talking about a movie. And I'm like, why are we even talking about doing a movie with this? There's no possible way you can tell that story in 3 hours even. So now that The Last of Us and Fallout have proven that video game adaptations seemingly do a lot better if they're treated well and have time to breathe in the TV format, I want to see a Metal Gear Solid TV series. That's my wish.
There's 2 for me, and they're 2 of my favorite games ever, but I would love to see a live action version. One is Red Dead Redemption. I would love to see like that Western vibe and kind of them making those characters, because that's such like a character driven game where it's so well told that you could make a whole game about just like one character, Dutch or anybody from that. And the other one, funny enough, you brought it up, was Gears of War. You know, I like that sci-fi action kind of thing with this invading group on the planet, and I think it would just work out really well for more of a show or a series than a game, because it's such a long drawn out thing. But those 2, weird enough.
They would have to do Gears of War like they did the original Predator. Just go and cast all of the meatheads of Hollywood in every single one of the roles.
Yeah, because you need big giant people. Because I also feel like they screwed up Halo so much for me that I didn't really enjoy Halo, that I would like to see Gears or give Halo a redo.
Yeah, I would like a redo of Uncharted, oddly enough, but a TV series. And have someone that Nathan Fillion in an Uncharted TV series. That's what I want. And I'm going to forget that a movie exists.
And I'll say one that I know me and Charles agree with. I don't know if you're a Resident Evil guy, Dave, but can we finally, do that one over? Yeah, can we finally get a Resident Evil game that follows the first game? They tried to do it with Welcome to Raccoon City, and I liked it what they did, but it was just like, can we just separate these two and do 2 different movies, please?
I agree. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan too. I like survival horror games, so that would have been. They really don't get me started on that, please. Like,
oh yeah,
there's nothing that annoys me more than when they say, "Hey, I know you got this source material. Yeah, fuck that. We're just gonna do this instead and see what you." It drives me. And I watched your Until Dawn, and I haven't put my video out yet. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Like, why? Drives me nuts.
There's so many video game fans that disagree with us. And they're like, why do I want to see the same story? I'm like, that's what the fucking point is. How many times do they have to prove that they suck at doing a different story before you stop trusting them to do that? Like,
I really didn't get that one at all. You know, like what's I feel like you just slapped the name on it. And other than that, like, we're in a place that looks like it.
Yeah, it's Happy Death Day with some visuals. Yeah.
How do you take that concept? Some people might not have want that spoiled, but
I'm with you, man. I am with you. It's the guy who burnt the Kim K crumble cookie.
I did burn
bastard.
I did burn Kim. If you don't know, I did a crumble review, and Kim Kardashian's cookie specifically, I said I was going to heat it up, and I basically charred it. So, I burnt Kim K.
We all want to.
Yeah, there's no improving crumble. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I don't get it. Like I was
the whole point of me
excited.
trying it is to find one that I like. Oh wow, I can see the point. I don't see it.
Dude,
But,
I'm gonna tell you, one of my favorite like indulgent foods is like a warm, gooey chocolate chip cookie. I am a cookie whore if you do it right.
Yeah.
And everybody's been hyping up crumble for years. It's like its own little cult following out there. And we finally got one over by the Costco. It's like 20 minutes from my house. And one day I was so convinced that this was going to be the shit. I bought like the full fucking like 12 pack or whatever it is. It was like $40 for cookies or something like that. Something ridiculous. And I got home and man, I don't think I tried all of them because they're big, but like the 2 or 3 that I took a bite out of, I was like, this sucks. These aren't even cookies. They're like cakes in circle form.
It also the store. It reminds me of the Apple store where it's just like that incredibly white Patrick Bateman house kind of thing. And when I walk in there, I'm just like, what? And then they show it to you. They're like, I don't know.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I don't like pissing people off with my opinions and stuff like that, but that's definitely one where I'm just like,
yeah. Insomnia cookies all day.
Agree. If you're picking between those two.
Oh yeah. Not even a choice. Let's see here. He's not done. He wants people to focus on Intergalactic. I agree. Let's see. Do you think Abby will bite the bullet in season 3? That's what we were just kind of talking about, because that's where the game kind of leaves it off. There's people that like the fact that she lets her go. There's people that think you should have been able to choose. There's people that think you should have killed her. I am 100% happy with the way that they leave it. I think that's thematically how it should end. Your feelings on Abby aside. So I would be very, very curious what their motivation would be if they changed that and have her kill Abby. To me, that's a totally different story then.
Agree. I think that they shouldn't change the meat of the story. Like we should still get to this. However we get there, we should still get to the same points that we got in the show versus the game. This should be the same, even if you tell it differently.
There you go.
It would be like letting Joel live.
Yeah. If Naughty Dog ended Nathan Drake's story in Uncharted, I think they will end Ellie's story in The Last of Us. I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we not only got an ending, we got an epilogue with Uncharted. So, you guys ever think Uncharted's going to come back, by the way? You think they're going to reboot it, or they're going to, the game, or they're going to do a side story with his daughter or anything like that?
I think they will. I feel like they can't leave things alone. Like we've learned just from even just movies, like, you know, like how many different, Halloweens are we going to get? I feel like they're going to touch that again too, by the way.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They're going to touch it again. Because after that, that's shit.
We like money.
I know it's completely off topic, but I just remember being in the theater watching that last Halloween and going, what the fuck?
Oh yeah.
What are we doing?
I did too, but it was more like this. What the fuck? Like I don't know how much you know about my experience with the Halloween fan base, but I got ran through the coals when I didn't love Halloween 2018, and it kind of became like a thing with me. And so when Halloween Kills came out, I liked it even less, got a little bit more flack. And so when Halloween Ends, I got to see it a night before it went wide. And at that point, I was just numb. It was whatever. And when it got to the point where Corey Cunningham body slammed him and took his mask, I was like, they're going to be so fucking mad. I can't wait to see. And man, it was not a disappointment.
I just wonder how that story got off the floor. Like people, they like, whoever wrote the script and they were like, they read it or they told somebody and they're like, oh yeah, no, go with that for sure.
Yeah.
Just what the hell were they doing with that? But I'm not a big fan of Halloween to begin with.
Yeah, they swear up and down that was always the intention. I call bullshit every single time. I think they had a certain story, and then COVID made them have paralysis of analysis, and they just started tweaking shit until it was on. Yeah,
agree. It didn't even have Michael Myers in it. Like he was in it for like 5 minutes. I don't know.
Shoehorned at the end there. Oh, by the way, we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
Oh boy. It always leads back to Halloween, guys.
The one I did see you get, well, it was more of a beef with the people who made the movie was Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because back then I would do reviews at the end of my food videos, and I think it was one of the first videos I saw from you. I'm like, he gets it. This movie fucking blew. It was one of the worst. So, I'm glad you stood on business with that one, because
that was so strange, because they really it was just one of them that was coming at me, but that turned into a whole thing, and then it just kind of kept coming back for like a year, and then eventually when the second one came out, they were like, dude, can we break bread? Like, we don't want this anymore. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then they ended up being really cool. So I'm glad that was a good ending for that story, but that was a wild thing for a while there.
It's
where
tough critiquing things, because you have to be honest, and sometimes the honesty, even if you're not trying to be, it can come off brutal to the people where that's their baby.
yeah.
Like people don't know this, but I've gotten some nasty emails from business owners over the years when
Oh,
it comes to even
I can
food.
imagine.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, this whole thing. I had one that made an Instagram story where he basically tried to call me a liar, where
Mhm.
he said that I had it wrong. So I had receipts. So I messaged the guy like really nicely, and I was just like, "Listen, I have a copy of everything that I made." He basically said that I got the flavor wrong of something because I said it didn't taste like this at all. I had a copy of the menu, and he didn't know because he changed the menu after that. He literally
Mhm.
went into the restaurant and changed all the menus. So I had to like, listen, I have a copy of the menu. I know you're trying to make it look like something. Can we just bury this shit? Because I'm not trying to beef with
Wow.
a restaurant. You'd be surprised, man.
Oh man. Yeah, there's a guy I watch occasionally on TikTok, Mr. Chime Time. I'm sure you're
Mhm.
familiar with him, and he
Yeah.
seems to get into it all the time with people about stuff like that.
Yeah,
They're like closing businesses and shit.
yeah, he's a lot more like willing to, whereas
Yeah.
I feel I can't be that. So I love his content though. So it's definitely, but you're gonna piss people off when you're being honest,
Yeah.
and that's just the way that it goes. So I got the beef thing, but that movie was a piece of shit. Like, sorry.
Yeah. It was a piece of shit that I paid $20 to see.
Yeah,
Made
that
it
was the
even
like because
worse.
it didn't have AMC Pass. Same thing. So
Yeah.
I went and watched it. I was like, oh, I can't wait when the Pooh's gonna off people, and I get there and I see this snot overall thing, with it. I don't know if that's supposed to be Piglet or this Christopher Rob. It was just like, and then the way it ended, and it was just I remember I went to see that movie with like 3 or 4 people, and afterwards we all just kind of sat there stunned and not in a good way.
Mhm.
Of like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
you kept it real.
I tried to. Did you ever watch the second one?
I did. They tried.
Yeah.
At least they tried, and I'll give them that. Like, I didn't necessarily love it, but at least it was a movie. The
Yes.
first one wasn't a movie to me.
I agree. 100% agree. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting with those guys because like even watching the things that they've done since then with like the Peter Pan, like I think they really want to make dark, fucked up, serious horror films, but they're kind of stuck in this Winnie the Pooh thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think the two match. And I kind of feel bad because like I watch the movie and I see the movies that they want to make. Like they want to go the Rob Zombie route.
Yep.
But they're stuck with this thing that's inherently silly. That at least for me, I'm like, this doesn't work unless it embraces that, like
Steamboat.
fully. Yeah. Yeah. So
I agree. Yeah, at
it
least they tried to say, listen, this is what you want, fine. We'll be silly with it.
exactly. All right, let's see if we got a couple more. BioShock. That's one that would need a hell of a budget.
Yeah.
They would need a hell of a budget, but I'd be there for it. Did you ever play BioShock, Charles?
I don't think so.
I did.
I think that's one you would like, actually. It's a first-person shooter, underworld or underwater, like 50s style. Like it's kind of wild. Sci-fi horror.
Okay.
Cody, do you think the Grand Theft Auto game should be adapted into a movie?
How?
Yeah, how exactly? Most of those games, it's just you.
So sandbox.
Exactly. It's not necessarily the story. Some people would disagree. You got a movie from Vice City. It's called Scarface.
Yeah, it's pretty much. And plus, if you did GTA 3, he doesn't talk.
And if they
Like,
did that in
yeah.
the movie or the show, that'd be brilliant. Where he just walks up and he doesn't even say shit to him. They're like, "Hey, kid, I need you to go over here," and he just like the whole movie. Then he finally says something as the credits roll. It's brilliant. Somebody do that. I'm not paying for it. All right, here. I saw Until Dawn today. I surprisingly didn't hate it. Like, it's not terrible. It's just like the source material is so clearly better that it's like, why didn't you just go that route? And the argument that people give me is, well, it's already an interactive movie. Why would we want to just take that experience over here? That's what an adaptation is. That's whether you're adapting a game to a movie or a show to a movie or a book to a movie. It's we're taking this experience and we're trying to bring it over here for people that aren't going to play the game. Like a lot of us gamers like to feel like we're the main character sometimes. And so when they're doing an Until Dawn movie, it's like, oh, this is for me. We're this much of the pie. Everybody else out there that they want their money for the box office, most of them don't play video games. So I just never understood that. Tony Chappie, they should have done the Halo movie with Neil Blomkamp with the Alex Garland script is great. I read it. Dave, have you read it? You familiar with what he's talking about?
I have not. I haven't read the script, no.
Alex Garland and Neil Blomkamp. That's definitely interesting.
I saw he had a bunch of like the District 9 and the Avatar and stuff, so it would make sense. Probably a fan of that. I like those movies, by the way.
Yeah, his name is Tony Movie Chappie, Neil Blomkamp fan. So yeah,
There you
you
go.
usually find a way to come back to it. I met Tony at MegaCon a couple of years ago, and this man had the most passionate argument in the world that was longer than most of my reviews for why the Neil Marshall Hellboy is underrated. So
Wow.
he had thoughts. Oh, we
Wow.
got some Crumble lovers in here. Melissa says that we're cray cray.
Listen, I don't have the same taste buds, and that's fine. I'll leave it at that. I don't like cookies that feel like I still need to put them in the oven for them to be edible. Personally, some people do.
Crumbles in the name, like no,
But they don't crumble; they flop. It's not.
There you go. What about Borderlands? Just recently, where Eli Roth cut off that movie before the studio Justice Leagued it all up. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that movie. What we got was very weird. Clearly, they shot a rated R bizarre film that is more Eli Roth, and then the studio did something else with it, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
A bit more obscure, but I'd be down with a What Remains of Edith Finch adaptation. Plenty of room to expand upon a great bare bones story. I am not familiar at all with what that is. Is that a video game?
You got my brain going. I don't. Me either.
What Remains of Edith Finch? Makes me think of like Who's Scared Baby Jane or whatever that movie is. Like
I want to go in the opposite direction, and I want more movies that aren't adaptations. You know, I want an original story where they came up with a story.
Haven't you read Variety? Sinners is failing.
That's it. Like, Sinners needs to be celebrated, and people need to like stop talking about a Minecraft movie. What other video games can we adapt? You're dead on. Like, how about we just be creative again? Can we just do that? And like, take risks, because that's part of being creative. Like, you don't know what's on the horizon. Instead of just saying, well, this worked in the past, do more of that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it's getting acclaim where because I hope it does even better at the box office. Not just necessarily because I love the movie, but because it's an original. People keep to be complaining about, we want originality, we want original plots. We have one, so let's celebrate this thing so we have more of it.
Right.
Yeah, I fight that battle all the time, and it drives me nuts where you'll see something that's genuinely unique and creative, and people just don't even know what it is. You put a review out, half the comments are like, never heard of this, but they have Captain America 17 or Transformers 12, and they show up in droves for it and then bitch the whole time that they've seen this movie before, and it's just like, where the fuck were you when Abigail came out? And so
horror has really been like Heretic, Companion.
Yeah,
those are really, really strong. And
horror
had
a good run of like original type of movies,
right?
Recently, so it's been good in this genre, especially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm with you. This was funny. So Brandon says, when I watched Halloween Ends, I was, oh shit, I forgot I was watching a Halloween movie. And then Sean says, so did they.
Man, I can't believe that they almost 40 years in between the first one and the last one, and that's like the whimper that it goes out with. But I'm one of those people that I wouldn't do well if I did movie reviews, because I'm not the biggest fan of Halloween in general.
Yeah,
when you talk about the whole body of work, like there's to me like two that are okay, the first one, and then like half of some of them. So they be dragging me through the coals right with you.
Yeah, you might be surprised, because like there's I think that was the worst when Halloween was the thing that was the big release. Like when Halloween 2018 came out, it was like, you better support this in every way, and it's like, well, that if it's not great, I'm going to say that. But people are a little bit more. Most people are a little bit more nuanced when it comes to different franchises and which ones you like, which ones you don't like. There's always going to be the people that come at you, and certain fan bases are worse than others. Like Halloween has some crazies, Scream has some crazies. I've never met any crazy Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th fan, aside from the ones that think that the remake is god awful. The Friday the 13th one, by the way, not the Nightmare one.
Really?
Yeah.
They think that's all. Wow. Okay.
A lot of Friday the 13th fans think that the remake is like the worst one.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And the reasons they give you are hilarious. They're like, Jason doesn't run. I'm like, yes, he did. Jason doesn't kidnap people. I'm like, well, she looked like his mom. They did the sweater thing in the second movie. There's they basically took the story of the first four films and
made it into a cohesive movie.
Yeah, exactly. I know Charles was kind of on that team, and he kind of came around to it not too long ago.
Never said
Not the worst
one,
but you weren't a fan, and then you've kind of come around to it. I was like, oh.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is.
When you actually talk about a movie that's watchable.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times could we off generic campers? Like, it's the same. I don't know. There's, look, I respect the lore and the presence of Jason, but the movie is largely art.
I got a huge kick out of watching your horror tier list and certain franchises. You were like, okay, we're just going to stick the whole franchise right here at the bottom. So I think Hellraiser and a couple others. I was like, yeah. And then you got the wrong turn, and that's where we started to go in different paths.
But I admit that wrong turn, they're not good.
Yeah.
I don't actually think they're good. I just find them enjoyably, like, especially the specific one, Bloodlines. Like it's the fifth one, where it's so bad with the sets and the fact that you can see that they put a
same city block over.
Yeah, like so I almost find it enjoyable watching how bad it is.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah,
but and the fact that Three Finger, you can see his eyes, like the makeup is not even well done. It's one of those things that it's like a guilty pleasure of. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like watching movies that kind of suck. Yeah. I feel that way about Slumber Party Massacre. The movie's not good, but I think like the second one is so like awful with the rockabilly guy that I'm actually having fun watching this guy prance around. I just think it's so bad it's good.
It's so junk food
for me.
Yeah, that's how I am with Sleepaway Camp.
Same idea.
I call him Disaster Piece.
Yes, same idea.
Yep. Gavin's got a good one here. What are the odds they cut that boat scene between Abby and Owen? I wouldn't be surprised if we get a love scene. I just don't think they're going to show it the way that they did in the game. And to this day, the way that they showed it in the game was still kind of off-putting.
The first time I played that game through, I couldn't believe, like, I'm like, they're actually going to show this? Like, I thought it was going to cut, and it never did. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I remember watching someone streaming it, and they had to like almost end the stream because they were on Twitch, and it got to that part, and they're like, it's you.
It wasn't me, but I did the same thing. Like I've been doing live streams on a YouTube channel that I have every once in a while, and when they had the remaster come out, I played through the game live stream, and I got to that part and forgot. So as soon as he starts ripping her shit up, I was like, oh fuck, oh, I was trying to grab something, all of a sudden it's there. I was like, oh, demonetized, canceled.
I don't know why they even put that in the game. It was just like, well, we could, so we did.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think we'll probably get a love scene, even though they haven't hinted at them having a relationship at all yet. We know nothing about those two characters yet.
Nothing.
So maybe they're just going to scrap that part. Thoughts on Chucky being canceled? Are you sad, Cody? I mean, no. I really didn't care for the direction they went with the show in season 2 at all. Season 3 made slight improvements, but not enough for me to be gung-ho about it. I know they're talking about doing a movie. Maybe that'll be good. I've kind of got to the point with Chucky where I've accepted the fact that I love the old stuff. The old stuff is always there. The new stuff really isn't for me. And I kind of, I don't like being the guy bitching about it online. I feel like the get off my lawn guy every time I talk about Chucky now. And, if you're somebody that likes the new stuff, you like the wild, crazy directions, you like ghosts and shit being in Chucky, then by all means, hopefully they get the funding to do more.
That 1,000 Chucky thing, like there's only one doll. There shouldn't be $5 billion. And every time I see that where he's like, though I did enjoy the 3 in Cult of Chucky, I enjoyed the banter that they had. Just to me, there's one doll. Like bring him back and no one else. So
yeah,
I agree with that. That turned me off from the show immediately.
Yeah, for me, that was where I started to pull back because that was something that Don Mancini had wanted to do ever since the third game or the third movie, and I never really was on board. Even in Cult, I wasn't totally there for it. But the one way I thought they could do it, which didn't end up being the way that they went, is if they made the series kind of anthology-wise, where all those Chuckies went off into the world at the end of season 1, and then every season after that is a different Chucky in a different town with different characters. So you still have one Chucky for that story, but it's different, and they just stuck with the same kids and a
truckload of Chuckies. Like
they ended the season with that, and they blew up all the Chuckies immediately in season 2. That's what they did all season 2. It was like, this is big, and they're all dead. This guy's a big character, and he's dead. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not personally sad. Obviously, I want all those guys to continue to work, so it's kind of a complicated feeling. Like I love Chucky, but I can't lie. What they've been doing with the show and the character has not worked for me. So, let's see here. Great stream, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Let's see here. Do a couple more. We'll end it right at 2 hours, so we got about another minute or so. We'll find a good one to end on. Sean, oh, we got a couple of super chats, so we'll get to those really quick. That'll be our ending. Walker, any chance you will hate the Final Destination 4 any less after rewatching it? I doubt it. That movie's terrible. Like, I haven't seen it since the theaters. I don't think that's a movie that grows on you. It's just a bad movie. And, and it was in 3D in the theater, so you have an aspect there that was at least halfway fun that you're never going to recreate at home. So
Is that the bridge one?
No, that's the fifth one. The fourth one is the race car.
The racetrack with the tires and the
yeah, that movie's pretty awful. So no, I don't imagine when I start to review those that I'm going to be any kinder to the fourth one. And it seems like you guys agree.
They've tried in 2 different generations to make that 3D shit work. Just they tried it in the 80s with Jason, and then they tried it again, with Texas Chainsaw, and that was just a super annoying thing.
Oh yeah,
that era.
Avatar came out and did it right, and then everybody tried to replicate that. And so every movie had a regular screening and then a post-converted 3D screening. And the only movie that I saw that it actually kind of worked was Piranha 3D, because they went so like balls out with it. Like it was 3D tits and everything. And so it was just like, okay, at least they're embracing how ridiculous it is. But that's it. That's the only one I could think of. Halloween, always been a polarizing franchise, and I love the new trilogy, but I also love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Well, you're just making everybody mad, Tony.
I think for the purpose of horror, Halloween 2018 served a purpose because, there are so many great horror movies now that we don't need these gigantic franchises for, studios to take risks. But like, you served your purpose. Now, go back to the old folks home. We're going to do other things now.
I really didn't like that second Rob Zombie one. I really didn't like it.
You don't like horses and dreams?
What the
I don't like that part of it, but I do like that movie. I get a lot of hell for it, but
I like the first one, and a lot of people don't like it. So I hear you.
Yeah, no matter what Rob Zombie movie you like, you're wrong. That's
people don't want Michael Myers to have a backstory, but if I take my "this is Halloween" out of it, I actually enjoyed that backstory part. I have to take out the fact that like he's the Shape.
I hear you. Watched and loved Red Rooms. Any of you seen it? I've never heard of it. Is this a show or a movie?
Is that French? I think it's a French movie, French language film from Canada, I want to say.
Of course you would know that.
Just get deep in your bag for that one.
My people, they hate me.
If you're familiar with it, it must have some kind of sexual assault scene, and somebody's eating feces and
some unwanted
So
things.
Did not have you be outside of an inside joke. So a number of years ago, Charles here started a review series called Who Would Like That, where he essentially would go through the video nasties and he would review like the nastiest movie, like the Serbian films and things like that.
Human Centipede, stuff like that.
It was like a little idea of like, oh, this will be provocative. And then he's been stuck doing it ever since because that's his highest performing content. So now he's like, he's watched all the video nasties and now he has to like wait for them to direct more.
Yeah,
that's how I ended up at Chili's, man. I get it.
Yep.
That's it. I could do 5-star restaurants. People are like, when are you going back to Chili's?
Yep.
So I completely understand.
Yep. I hear you. Guilty pleasure of mine. I love Wes Craven Cursed unrated cut, especially knowing the crazy production of it. To me, that is the most sought after, most valuable director assembly cut if we could ever get it. If they could ever go back and get all the actual footage that Wes Craven shot the first time around and assemble something, I would be fascinated to see that.
Christina Ricci?
Yeah.
Yep.
Where he shot the entire movie short of the last 10 minutes. And then Harvey Weinstein said, fucking start over. I hate it. And so he went and had to reshoot the entire movie. They took Skeet Ulrich out of the film. And the movie that we got is the Harvey Weinstein cut, basically. And it's fun in its own way. But when you know what the movie was supposed to be, like they actually had Rick Baker on staff to do the werewolf design. And they scrapped his werewolf design to do a CGI werewolf. The guy that did American Werewolf in London. So yeah, there's so much about what he originally shot where it's like, I don't even care if it's not edited all the way. Just let me see it.
Yeah.
Halloween and Scream fans seem to be the most insufferable nowadays, and the Scream fans are trying to pretend the I Know is classic. Get the fuck out with that. Yeah, Scream fans have been pretty rough, and it's only extrapolated with the whole Melissa Barrera thing. So now there's 2 different camps of Scream fans. There's the crazy Scream fans and then the crazy Melissa fans.
Both of them
And
have nothing on Star Wars fans.
yeah, you can never get that. Cody,
And
you made the cursed Wikipedia article. I saw that. Somebody told me that. I did a video about most wanted horror director's cuts, and now I'm like a footnote. I'm referenced in the cursed Wikipedia article where they're like, YouTuber Cody Leach has said that this is the most sought after. So I don't know. I feel special. Anyway, guys, we've been talking for just over 2 hours. I had a blast. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If we're available, I'd like to do this again once the show is done, and we can kind of talk about the whole season. But we'll be in contact about all of that.
100%.
I've got everybody's links in the video description. Charles's channel and both of Dave's channels down below. But Dave, if you can give everybody an idea. One, I don't even think I introduced you as like a food reviewer and food blogger. So if you could give everybody an idea of what your channels are, both of them, and maybe some things to look forward to that's coming out soon.
My first channel is basically a food blog. I basically eat, and most of the time I rate things, but sometimes I just want to eat, and I talk about different subjects and try different types of food. The second channel is literally just whatever the hell I want at this point. I think I have a video coming out tomorrow where I went grocery shopping. They're vlogs, or I want to talk about horror movies. I want to talk about The Last of Us. I don't know what the hell I'm doing on that channel. It's just people that, if you care anything outside of the food space, if you're interested, have fun.
There you go.
So people know that I don't just eat. I also do other stuff.
What's the next big review coming?
That McDonald's, I think I put out today, was the crispy strips, and that's pretty much. I'm at chains now, man. That's kind of my niche. So I got some from Burger King and some KFC chicken and waffles that are out, by the way, if people are interested in that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm going tomorrow.
I know you're knee deep in a burger series. If you get to the end of that one, while Taco Bell still has their things, you got to do like a chicken nugget series where you get all the different chicken nuggets and compare them.
I've actually thought about doing that too.
There you go. I just reaffirmed the idea.
And fries was another one too. That was the same idea. Like, who has the best?
Did McDonald's do the Philly cheesesteak over there?
No.
No.
That's definitely that's not USA shit at all.
If you want me to rant, I don't know why other countries have better McDonald's and shit than us. It drives me crazy.
It's
Chicken
weird.
selects and snack wraps are available everywhere but here.
And banana shakes. Banana shakes
me off
on
whenever
the menu.
it pisses me off when I get the advertisements on like Facebook or Twitter or something like that, where it's just like new in KFC, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then you look at it, it's like only in Nigeria.
The amount of tags that I get where people are like, oh, go review us. I'm like, yeah, hold on. I got to go to, the Philippines to go try the new
8-hour flight.
It drives me insane because I'm just like, why don't they do this shit? We're the fattest country in the world. Like, why are we not doing this stuff here?
Yeah. A Pizza Hut pizza with cheeseburgers in the crust. That's American. What the fuck are we doing? Why is it over there?
I don't understand. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Here they have a Philly in Denmark. The Tastes of America are a bunch of things. There's like 4 or 5 sandwiches. But here in the UK, they had a Philly cheesesteak, which is essentially a quarter pounder with a ton of cheese whiz thrown on top. It's not atrocious, but I'm like, we don't have this. You don't even have a Philadelphia. Why are you selling this?
I love the fact that other countries just think that we're just ranch and cheese and bacon. That's all we do here. That's immediately the thing. We just douse everything in ranch and bacon and we just eat it. I love that. In between donuts.
It's somewhat accurate too, because my sister actually was a waitress at Chili's for years, and she's like, if I have to have one more fucking person ask me for an extra ranch cup, like, that's a big thing.
Yeah, the Doritos, the blue bag is American. It's not even ranch; it's American Doritos.
Wow,
Charles,
Sorry.
I don't even know why you're rolling the dice with a Philly cheesesteak burger, sir. When you do crazy fast food things, you end up in the hospital every single time.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
There you go. Anything coming out on Wiliscredia?
I think we're doing it's some variation on this, only on episode 3, the day after tomorrow.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you want to hear him repeat everything he just said tonight with somebody who looks slightly like me, but not quite. Yes, exactly. As far as me, guys, I have a video that's supposed to be coming out tomorrow, which is a tier list video of a bunch of video game movie adaptations. All the ones that I have seen. So there's like 40 of them. There's a couple of big omissions, but it's a pretty big tier list, and it's fun because it's the only tier list that I've done where the S tier feels like a lie, where I'm like, this is not an S tier movie, but it is the top of this list. So we have that coming out tomorrow. Thunderbolts will be Friday, and then we're going to kick off the Final Destination review series at long last next week. So on like Monday or so, I'll start doing those and ride that all the way up until Bloodlines comes out. So thank you guys so much for watching. You'll also see my next thoughts on next week's episode on Monday. So be sure to subscribe to these guys' channels. We'll be back more likely here in about 4 weeks. And everybody, have a good night. Where is the outro video?
No.
No, where's it at? End stream.